Welcome to the 98th Annual General Meeting of the Radio Society of Great Britain. I'm Steve Thomas, M1ACB, the RSGB General Manager. We start, as always, with a few administrative points. The format of this online Annual General Meeting was agreed by the Board of the Radio Society of Great Britain in February 2025. The calling notice, previous minutes, election details were published in the April 2025 edition of RADCOM and on the Society's website at rsgb.org/AGM, together with the annual report and the financial statements. Paid up members of the Society have been able to vote online or by post. The voting has been conducted by Civica Election Services on behalf of the Society, and the ballot closed at 9 a.m. on the 10th of April 2025. Members have been able to submit written questions to the Board of Directors in advance of this meeting and to register to ask questions via live Zoom. Registrations for video questions closed at noon on the 7th of April, and submission of written questions closed at 9 a.m. on the 10th of April 2025. The board will also be taking questions submitted via the YouTube live chat later in the meeting. Due to time constraints, priority will be given to questions submitted in advance and then to questions asked by members via the live chat. These proceedings are being recorded and will be available via the Society's website in due course. As you know from our Articles of Association, any resolutions to be considered by the meeting must be submitted 21 days in advance. We've received no resolutions and the meeting will be as set out in the calling notice. During the formal AGM, previously submitted questions will be addressed if they relate to agenda items, or separately during the subsequent session if they relate to more general work of the Society or amateur radio matters. We are presenting this live, but if technology fails and the live stream stops, the AGM will continue and the results will be announced via other communications channels. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Society's Board Chair, Dr. Stuart Bryant, G3 YSX.
Thank you, Steve. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Society's Annual General Meeting. Before we start the formal business, let me confirm that this meeting is the Annual General Meeting dealing with the business as described in the calling notice. After the formal part of the meeting, our retiring President, John McCullough, MBE, GI4 BWM, will present a review of 2024, and this will be followed by the presentation of awards. We will then move to a Q&A session for Board Directors to answer previously submitted and a selection of live questions as time allows. The AGM will conclude with a presentation, the RSGB in the year ahead. We now turn to the formal meeting, the 98th Annual General Meeting. The President, John McCullough, GI4BWM, the Honorary Treasurer, Chris Wood, GD6 TWF, and the General Manager, Steve Thomas, M1ACB, will also be contributing to the meeting. Also joining the online meeting are members of the board and some senior members of staff. We have received apologies for absence from the following members: Ian Brothwell, G4EAN, Stephen Purser, GW4SHF, Mark Savage, M0XIC, Victor Mitchell, GI4ONL, and Peter Ransom, M0SFZ. We also unfortunately have a last minute apology from Mark Jones at G0MGX, who currently has technical issues joining the AGM. I now move to the published agenda. Agenda item 1, which is resolution 1, is to receive and, if approved, confirm the minutes of the 97th Annual General Meeting held on the 13th of April 2024 and circulated to members in the April 2025 RADCOM. It is not a requirement that these minutes be presented at the annual general meeting, nor is it required that we record any details of discussion on them other than to record decisions made. We haven't received any questions regarding this subject. There is a board motion to confirm the minutes. May I have a proposer, please?
John McCulloch, GI4BWM.
Thank you, John. And now may I please have a seconder?
Len Paget, Golf Mike 0, Oscar, November X-ray.
Thank you, Len. The results of the voting, independently managed by Civica Election Services, show that the motion is carried by 77 votes to 2 with 1 abstention. Agenda item 2 is to receive and consider the accounts for the period 1st of January 2024 to 31st of December 2024, and the reports of the board and the auditors which were made available online from the 12th of March 2025. I call upon the Treasurer, Chris Wood, GD6 TWF, to present the auditor's report.
Thank you, Stuart. You'll have noted that we had a positive audit, which is what you would expect. We should highlight the auditors were particularly impressed with the professionalism with which we manage our finances, processes and procedures.
Thank you, Chris. Now to the accounts. I will start by mentioning that there is no requirement to lodge the accounts, and the purpose of this item on the agenda is to give members the opportunity to submit any questions in advance of the AGM to be considered at this time. I will ask Chris to give a brief summary of the accounting period 2024.
Thank you, Stuart. I've recorded my summary this year so that we could illustrate the figures that I'm reporting to members. We plan to publish unaudited financial information showing the results published recently. I'm pleased to report the auditors identified no issues during their audit. Robust internal controls were observed and therefore no internal control recommendations were made. Indeed, the auditors commented what a pleasure it was to have a smooth and enjoyable audit. I thank all of the staff and volunteers involved in the audit. Society reported turnover of £1,726,000 in 2024 compared to £1,558,000 in 2023, and reported a deficit of £16,000 in 2024 compared to a deficit of £119,000 in 2023. Society's membership reduced by less than 1% in 2024. The board is of the view this is as a result of the work on the strategic priorities. As a membership organisation, membership fees are the largest proportion of our income and therefore critical to the future of the society. Demand for examinations has remained very strong. The 2024 deficit reduction was helped by certain staff vacancies during the year. However, these vacancies will need to be filled in 2025, leading to higher costs in 2025. In addition, as a result of the October 2024 UK budget, employer national insurance contributions will increase in 2025, so we'll incur additional national insurance costs. Society's investments have made gains of £33,000 during 2024. This helped strengthen the Society's balance sheet. These investments have made gains of £92,000 since they were purchased. As part of our commitment to financial stability, we aim to return to a break-even position within the next 24 months. The Society has 4 strategic priorities, all of which are interlinked. In terms of the priority of ensuring the financial stability of the Society, the other 3 feed into this. Growth of amateur radio. This gives rise to new entrants in the hobby who take exams, join the Society and buy merchandise. This supports existing licensees by expanding the hobby. Membership of the RSGB. Retaining and attracting members is critical to the long-term success of the Society and its continued financial stability. We are a membership organisation and this is our lifeblood. Spectrum and licensing. The loss of amateur bands, onerous licensing and interference in the amateur radio spectrum would see licensees leaving the hobby or becoming inactive. This in turn would mean they're less likely to be retained as members or join the Society. The other strategic priorities are supported by the work the Finance Department undertakes. As you would expect, the Society operates robust financial controls. Any weaknesses in financial controls could impact on the financial stability of the society. The budgeting process gives the board a forward-looking view of the performance and financial position of the society. It is a key control in understanding the financial performance of the society. The financial controller, the general manager, as well as the board invest a lot of time in ensuring it is robust. Finance is a standing agenda item at every board meeting. The board sees detailed monthly financial information from the financial controller with commentary. All of the variances to budgets are analysed in detail. The deficits over the last few years were forecast and planned. The society has the cash and investments to allow us to do this. These deficits return value to the members. The society does not need to retain large reserves. We have cash and investments of £1,164,000, of which £201,000 are designated funds or held on behalf of trusts that aren't available for general expenditure, such as the Legacy Fund, Spectrum Defence Fund, or prize funds. The return on cash and investments does help support the society from day to day. The investments are held in funds that can be sold at short notice without penalty. The 2024 budget signed off in December 2024 includes significant investment plans over the next few years. This will focus on improving delivery of services to members and safeguarding the IT infrastructure. The investment by the society has resulted in the delivery of the RSGB app, giving us new ways to deliver information and giving members a searchable source of historical RADCOM information. We need to continue to invest, and the board has created a project management committee to support this investment. Staff and board have remained very focused on controlling costs, and there is a constant drive to find ways of doing so without reducing services and benefits to members. As a result, the board has not had to take any decision to reduce services and benefits to members in order to save costs, despite the worsening of the financial environment since 2022 because of geopolitical events. The Legacy Fund allows us to invest in amateur radio in ways that would not otherwise be possible and complements the strategic priorities. A recent Legacy funding will see a scout group provided with a station and antennas, enabling more scouts to experience amateur radio, and these individuals may then become licensed growing amateur radio. We've seen many successful activities over the last year that have supported our strategic priorities, and some of these will be outlined in the President's review of the year and in the board's strategic presentation that follows the formal part of the AGM. These activities, in turn, will support the financial stability of the society. I conclude by saying that the society is in a stable financial position, and the forward-looking view from the budget processes shows that should continue. We all have a role to play in achieving the financial stability of the society by supporting the work on the strategy, encouraging newcomers into amateur radio, and encouraging people to join the society. If every member encouraged one person every 5 years to become a radio amateur and join the RSGB, we would double our membership in 5 years. Thank you. We plan to publish unaudited financial information showing the results and performance of the society on the 30th of June 2025 to give members a view mid-year. We have not received any questions regarding this subject. Over to you, Stuart.
Thank you, Chris. We are required simply to receive the accounts at this meeting, and there is no requirement to vote. I will now move on to the next agenda item. The next agenda item is item 3, which is Resolution 2, to appoint Peters, Ellsworthy and Moore as auditors and to authorise the board to fix their remuneration. The board is of the view that, at least for the time being, reappointment of our current auditors is in the best interest of the society, both for reasons of costs and continuity. The board has therefore determined to recommend the reappointment of the existing auditors. May I have a proposer, please?
Yes, good morning. Tony Miles, MM0TMZ.
Thank you, Tony. And now may I have a seconder, please?
Peter Bowyer, G4MJS.
Thank you, Peter. The results of the voting, independently managed by Civica Election Services, show that the motion is carried by 77 votes to 2 with 1 abstention. I now turn to the outcome of the election process. The society needed to elect a new president. John McCullough, GI4 BWM, has reached the end of his 2-year term as president and so must retire from the role and from the board. A request for candidates was sent out in the January 2025 RADCOM and online. At the closing date for nominations on the 31st of January 2025, only one candidate, Bob Beebe, GU4YOX, was duly nominated. There is no provision in the articles for a member vote in these circumstances. I therefore declare Bob Beebe, GU4YOX, as duly elected, and he will serve as President until the 2027 AGM. Congratulations to Bob. I would like to place on record the thanks of the Board and the Society to our retiring President, John McCullough, MBE, GI4BWM. A lot has been achieved during his 2 years in office, and John played an essential part in that. On behalf of everyone, thank you, John. There were 2 vacancies for elected directors. 2 candidates completed the process, and I duly declare them elected. They are Peter Bowyer, G4MJS, and Mark Savage, M0XIC. Peter was co-opted to the board in July 2024, and so to comply with Article 32, his term will finish at the 2027 AGM. Mark will serve a 3-year term ending at the 2028 AGM. Congratulations to both. In addition to the President and the 4 elected directors, the board also includes 3 nominated directors. Nominated directors are selected by the Society's nomination committee and then recommended to the membership to be by an endorsement ballot. We are currently advertising for a new nominations committee chair. If you would like to be considered for that role, or if you feel you have the skills or knowledge which you would be willing to use to help the Society in a different role, including director, please contact Stephen Purser, GW4SHF, via company.secretary@rsgb.org.uk. Expressions of interest from candidates from diverse backgrounds would be particularly welcome. Finally, there were the regional representative vacancies in 8 regions. A request for candidates was sent out in the January 2027 RADCOM and online. At the closing date for nominations on the 31st of January 2025, 7 candidates had been duly nominated, and I declare them elected unopposed. They are, for Region 1, George Crawford, MM0JNL. For Region 4, Ian Bowman, G7ESY. For Region 7, Mark Stevenson, GW0YMS. For Region 8, Victor Mitchell, GI4ONL. For Region 10, Mark Harris, G4WQG. For Region 11, Andrew Jenner, G7KNA. And for Region 12, Brian Woolnough, GM5ADQ. All will serve a 3-year term until the 2028 AGM. There was no valid nomination for Region 9, but the board will look to fill this co-option by co-option until the 2026 AGM. On behalf of the board, I congratulate all the successful candidates. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the board members who come to the end of their term at this AGM. Tony Miles, MM0TMZ, completes a 3-year term as director at this AGM. Tony decided not to stand for election. Tony also completes his 6-year term as the regional representative at this AGM. On behalf of the members, I thank Tony for his services to the Society. Peter Ransom, M0SFZ. Peter was co-opted onto the board but decided not to stand for election. On behalf of the board, I thank Peter for his service to the Society. The following regional representatives have also completed their term, and I wish to express my gratitude to them. Peter Lowry, MI5JYK from Region 8. Ron White, G6LTT from Region 9. Keith Bird, G4JED from Region 10. Keith also steps down as the chair of the regional forum, and we thank them all.
At the AGM each year, we remember staff or senior volunteers who've sadly passed away. This year, we remember Gillian Cool, a member of my professional team at RSGB HQ. Jill held the role of sales administrator, but that brief title doesn't adequately describe what Jill really did for the 6.5 years she was with us. Jill managed the rally stock in the office, sending out books and supporting materials to the regional team, sending promotional material out to members and preparing us for major events. Jill was very well known nationally and internationally for her work at rallies and events. Last year every year she drove the van that delivered the stand to ham radio in Friedrichshafen, building and working on the stand for the duration of the show, then breaking the stand down again and driving back to Bedford. Jill also worked on the stand at the Dayton Hamvention and in 2024 recruited more new members than anyone else. Jill was a cornerstone of the RSGB operations during the COVID restrictions. While all of the staff worked from home, Jill was the only member of the team to work in the office, isolated from everyone, but giving so much support to her colleagues, the members and those joining amateur radio at that time. Jill handled deliveries, post, membership packs, exam certificates, and call sign checks for those returning to amateur radio. Everything we needed to deliver what we did during those challenging times. We all owe Jill an enormous debt of gratitude for her time spent with us at the RSGB.
Thank you, Steve. On that sad note, that concludes the annual general meeting. Thank you all for your contribution to it. We now move to the informal part of the proceedings, which begin with the President's review of 2024. This was filmed a few weeks ago at the Steam Railway Museum in Swindon. As he comes to the end of his 2-year term as President, John looks back at some of the highlights and successes of the last year. He also talks about the importance of the RSGB strategy and of the Society to all radio amateurs. He gives examples of the work done by the Society to protect and provide access to spectrum, support the amateur radio community, and attract new audiences to amateur radio.
Hello, I'm John McCulloch, GI 4BWM, President of the Radio Society of Great Britain. And today I'm speaking to you from the Steam Railway Museum in Swindon, the home of the legendary Great Western Railway. As my term as President comes to an end, I want to take this opportunity this year to highlight my own passions, share events I participated in, and emphasise the importance of the RSGB for every amateur. Since taking on this role in April 2023, my goal has been to guide the RSGB towards a strategic future. Our key priorities are growing amateur radio, increasing RSGB membership, managing spectrum and licensing, and maintaining financial stability. When I joined the board, strategy was somewhat overlooked, but now we've made it into a main focus, and I know that future leaders will continue this work. Significant progress has been made, and a number of work streams have been created to implement the priorities. I wish to extend my gratitude to those who have taken on leadership roles, especially in youth and outreach initiatives. These efforts are crucial in engaging with groups that we consider pivotal to the future of amateur radio and the Society. I've always believed that if you spark an interest in someone when they're young, then you will get them for life. My own interest in things electronic began when I was about 8 years old. I became fascinated in tinkering with old radios and trying to get them working. This interest never left me and led to an amateur radio licence and eventually a career in professional communications engineering at a senior level. We must engage young people early in their education to light that spark of interest in amateur radio and STEM subjects, which will hopefully remain with them for good. As digital technology advances, RF engineers are becoming an increasingly rare resource. It's important to remind everyone that radio technology is integrated into so many of the devices we use today. We need more people to take this career path to ensure that the UK remains at the forefront of radio research and development. I've been leading a small team on what we're calling the mature audience segment. Our main efforts so far have been with the large U3A, University of the Third Age grouping, and we're working with our amateur radio advisor on a number of initiatives. We want to reach a wide range of new audiences, so we're speaking to other like-minded groups to make them aware of what amateur radio can offer people who have retired. As part of that project, we produce presentation materials which will enable RSGB volunteers to give talks explaining in non-jargon terms what we're all about. And now, why are we at the Great Western Railway? On the 1st of January 2025, Heritage Railways celebrated the 200th year of railways by taking part in a simultaneous whistle-up from locomotives at 1200 GMT. When that happened, I wonder if anyone considered that their ability to do this is owed to the history of electronic communications, which goes back to the dawn of the railway age. Before the establishment of the railway network, time differences existed between different parts of the country. They mattered little. People generally stayed close to their own areas, relied on local time, and didn't need to worry about the time differences that existed because of the world's rotation. This all changed when railways became joined up. When you consider that London time was 4 minutes earlier than Reading time, and 8 minutes before Bath and Bristol, it was impossible to have timetables. It was imperative to introduce a standard time throughout the country. So the concept of railway time was born, with clocks across the network being synchronised by the newly invented electric telegraph, with messages between stations being transmitted in a code invented by Samuel Morse. It is fashionable to think that digital transmission is something new, but when you think about it, this is probably the first application of digital technology. Time was finally standardised in 1852 when the Royal Observatory at Greenwich transmitted accurate time signals throughout the country by electric telegraph, and so GMT was born. In 1865, the International Telecommunications Union was formed, dividing the world into 24 time zones, and here we are today, still using the same basic principles of timekeeping, although with much higher accuracy. The ITU remains the body that's responsible for developing communication standards to ensure we can all interchange information electronically, whether by radio or by other means. The ITU is especially important to amateur radio, as it allocates all radio spectrum on a global basis and convenes world radio conferences every 4 years to agree how this should be done. The International Amateur Radio Union was formed in 1925 to defend our spectrum against those who had realised that the shortwave bands that amateurs were using was a very valuable resource. As RSGB President, I'm head of delegation to the IARU. I've represented the Society at international conferences and meetings, together with several volunteers who've served the Society and the IARU well over the years. We continue to work tirelessly to protect our valuable allocations in the face of fierce competition from the commercial world. Perhaps this is reason enough to support the work of the Society. After all, without spectrum, there isn't any amateur radio. My own professional background is in the implementation of large radio systems and the management of spectrum that goes with it. I found this spectrum experience to be invaluable in my various RSGB roles, including my 12 years as chair of the ETCC and then as president. Having that depth of knowledge was vital as Murray, Stewart, Steve and I met with Ofcom and discussed its proposals on how the amateur licence could be modernised, and of course to propose some of our own changes too. The review of licensing has concluded, and I believe that most of the changes have been well received, perhaps with one notable exception, and with an eye on my call sign, I'm sure you can guess which one. The positive changes include the relaxation of rules to permit supervised operation by non-licensed individuals. This has provided many with a chance to get on the air and experience the thrill of operating. I know this is borne out by reports of many happy people leaving the RSGB National Radio Centre at Bletchley Park with smiles on their faces. We've been given more freedom to experiment by the removal of many frequency coordination requirements, combined with the incorporation of repeaters, beacons and gateways into the main licence. However, it has also meant a significant increase in the work of the ETCC members. The new freedoms have seen a 36% uplift in licensing activity over the last year, with a corresponding increase in frequency coordination and issue of assignment certificates. The changes to repeater operation have also given much needed flexibility in the deployment of temporary repeaters by RAINET UK. They provide vital communications to support medical and essential services, often in circumstances where other communication channels don't work. I must declare a special interest in RAINET UK activities as I am an active county controller in Northern Ireland. I've been in this role for quite a few years, but was greatly surprised when at the RAINET UK AGM in October I was awarded the Brian Tyndall Shield for my services to the organisation. As the UK's national society, we usually attend a few important events abroad, so that we can keep in touch with other societies, find out what they're doing, and welcome new people to RSGB membership. This year I was able to accompany our team to the Dayton Hamvention and to Friedrichshafen Ham Radio 2024. These are the showcase events for amateur radio in the US and Europe. It was great to meet like-minded people at all levels and exchange ideas on how our hobby can be taken forward. Attendance at these major events also allows us to talk to advertisers and influencers in the amateur radio world. We had many interviews with well-known YouTubers, our old friends from YCQ Podcast, and I was even interviewed by Dayton TV and radio stations. The radio interview was shared the first time with an estimated audience of over 36,000 and then aired multiple times. Steve Thomas, M1ACB, and I spoke to Josh from Ham Radio Crash Course, who did a live stream to his 346,000 YouTube subscribers. It was a great opportunity to reach a large audience with news about the RSGB. We recruit significant numbers of new members to the Society and renew many memberships at these events. It's obvious from conversations on the stand that our publications are held in high esteem throughout the worldwide amateur community, but we should always be seen as much more than a bookshop for amateur radio. When we were at Dayton, I was approached by a number of people who had visited the RSGB National Radio Centre while visiting the UK and who praised its facilities. Others came to the stand specifically to take out RSGB membership so that they could use the free entrance voucher when next in the UK. It is very clear to me that the National Radio Centre has a wide international appeal, and those international visitors are an important part of the 80,000 who visit the NRC each year. Free admittance to Bletchley Park is available to all members, which is yet another reason to join. "2024 marked the 60th anniversary of the founding of Islands on the Air, better known as IOTA. To celebrate this milestone, a gala dinner was held at Friedrichshafen, and I was honoured to be invited by Cesar V3LYC as their special guest. I had an unusual request in being asked to bring a small rock from Ireland to add to the collection of rocks from islands around the world, which is curated by the NCDXF North Carolina DX Foundation. The RSGB Convention is an event I always enjoy. As part of the planning team, I also know it takes a tremendous effort to stage. My thanks go to Steve Thomas, M1ACB, our General Manager, Keith Hotchkiss, G0FEA, the Lecture Coordinator, Heather Parsons, M7OWS, our Communications Manager, Mark Algar, M1MPA, the Commercial Manager, and all the others who put in so many late hours to ensure the event was a success. I had met Rafael Lukovici, EI6LA, when I was at the IRTS Gala Dinner in Galway last April, so he readily agreed to be our keynote speaker. He gave a very interesting and thought-provoking talk on the future of amateur radio education and licensing. We had a wide programme of lectures and an almost oversubscribed microcontroller programming workshop run by board member Mark Jones, G0MGX. This was another reminder that doing rather than watching is extremely popular. Offering events like this is a way to support radio amateurs to develop new skills, as well as being an increasingly important part of our outreach. I spent most of Sunday morning presenting trophies and awards to our contesting community. This was a great opportunity to meet with this enthusiastic band of people and see the passion that they have for this part of amateur radio. Due to pressure of his day job, Keith stepped down as lecture coordinator following the event. Keith came into the role 2 years ago and had worked as part of the team to source and coordinate topics and speakers. Steve had been convention chair for the past 3 years, alongside managing the society. I don't know how he managed to fit it all in, but the success of the convention is testament in itself. He stepped down at last year's convention so they could concentrate on leading the many other society activities that the General Manager has to lead in a changing environment. I thank them both for the huge amount of work they put into the convention. RS continues to be a great introduction to amateur radio to young people across the world. Kieran Morgan, M0XTD, is the RSGB RS Coordinator and also the RS Operations Lead for the UK. Together with a skilled team of AMSAT UK members, he led a number of very successful and exciting school contacts this year. The outstanding contact for me, and I expect many others, was in October at Brooklands Museum, when I had the honour to be in the welcoming party for Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Edinburgh. She was on her first official engagement as patron of the Girl Guides Association. It is difficult to portray the sheer excitement generated in the throng of excited girls as Kieran led the build-up to the actual contact. The Duchess exchanged greetings messages with Sunita Williams, KD5PLB aboard the space station, and then helped in shepherding others to the microphone to play their own part in this memorable event. Before Her Royal Highness left Brooklands, I introduced her to Stuart Bryant G3YSX, our board chair, and to Alan Messenger G0TLK, who had coordinated the day with the royal household. Following the excitement of the contact, the girls enjoyed a wide variety of amateur radio and STEM activities organised by RSGB staff, STEM ambassadors and volunteers. These included the construction and use of snail Morse keys, spell your name in Morse, the BBC microbit, scrolling displays, and the demonstration of a CubeSat simulator. Some members of Girl Guiding had asked, why are we going to do boy stuff? But rapidly changed their minds after taking part in the activities. The RSGB was at the forefront of organising this event, so I must thank all the RSGB volunteers and staff who were involved for their very hard work over many months. It was especially challenging as the contact took place in the weekend between the New York Hamfest and the RSGB Convention. It was an exceedingly tight time frame, but everyone pulled out the stops and literally burned midnight oil to get it done. I'm very supportive of British Science Week, which is a celebration of science, technology, engineering and maths. It's a great vehicle to get schools and people of all ages involved in STEM and radio-related events. The RSGB is an official partner of British Science Week 2025, and fantastic to see us having an official amateur radio activity included in their community pack. In another fantastic development for this year, the RSGB outreach team has partnered with the Radio Communications Foundation to provide FM radio receiver kits for 15 schools, university, scout and youth groups to build. I was fortunate to get the opportunity to visit Marlborough Scout Group as they took part in building these kits, and you can see just how popular the activity was. This is more great outreach in action. What we hope is that the taste of today has given you a thought of what you might do in the future. Get into amateur radio or perhaps into a career in electronics.
CQ40, Golf Bravo 2, Mike.
The Scouts also enjoyed operating under supervision.
Mike Alpha Romeo calling CQ.
As I said earlier, encouraging clubs, schools and universities to get young people on the air can spark their interest in amateur radio. Once they experience it, they often become very enthusiastic and go on to become fully fledged amateurs. The licensing review has made hands-on operating possible, as shown by the enjoyment during our Euro Month activities in December. I have found the past 2 years extremely busy but very rewarding as I worked together with the board and volunteers to get the Society back on track and pointed in the right direction. I'm pleased to see that strategic work is no longer seen as something to pay lip service to, but something that's essential if the RSGB and amateur radio is going to thrive in the future. Outreach is the key to growth, and our structures need reviewing to ensure that we do have the right people in the right places. A great start has been made, and you'll hear much more about the progress from Mark Jones and Ben Lloyd in the presentations which will follow the formal part of the AGM. I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude to all who have been involved in this important work. I would also like to express my gratitude to the headquarters staff who provided assistance and guidance throughout my term. Despite being few in number, your dedication in completing tasks and overcoming numerous obstacles has been exceptional. In conclusion, as my time in office comes to an end, I wish Bob Beebe, GU4YOX, well as he becomes the 77th President of the Radio Society of Great Britain. At this time, I would normally hand over the chain of office to Bob, but this obviously cannot happen at a virtual AGM. Instead, it will be done at the National Rally at the Norbrack Castle Hotel in Blackpool. I look forward to seeing many of you there. To everyone else, it just remains for me to say thank you for all your support as I end my term as President.
Thank you, John. We now commence with the presentation of the major society trophies for 2024. These will be announced by the President, John McCullough, GI4 BWM, the General Manager, Steve Thomas, M1ACB, and myself. Details of the trophies, their recipients, and the full citations will be published on the RSGB website and in Radcom. So we start with the Jock Kyle Memorial Award. This is awarded to the Scottish Club or Society or RSGB member thought to have done the most in Scotland in the field of VHF during the past year. And this goes to Hugh Martin, GM4 UYE, for his achievements on 6 meters with a modest station.
And we now turn to the Jack Wiley Trophy. This is awarded to the Scottish Club, Society or RSGB member thought to have done the most for amateur radio in Scotland during the past year. And this year it's awarded to John Dundas, GM0 OPS, for his achievements in Scottish amateur radio contesting, his long-term contribution to amateur radio in Scotland and to spectrum management.
And now we go to the Courtney Price Trophy. This is awarded for the most outstanding technical contribution to amateur radio in 2024. And this is awarded to Dave Crump, G8GKQ, for his Raspberry Pi based home-built radio test equipment published in the August, September and October 2024 Radcoms.
This year's Ostermeyer Trophy is awarded for the most meritorious description of a piece of home constructed or electronic equipment published in Radcom in 2024. And this year it goes to Tom Aldred, VA7TA, for his design of excessive RF level protection filters, which was published in the January 2024 Radcom Plus.
And now to the Norman Keith Adams Prize, which is awarded for the most original article published in Radcom in 2024. And this year this goes to Gordon Lean, G3WJG, for his article Noise Levels Around the World, published in the February 2024 Radcom.
The Bennett Prize, G8PF, is awarded for any significant contribution or innovation which furthers the art of radio communications. And this year it's awarded to Steve Ireland, VK6VZ, and also G3ZZD, and to Kevin Smith, VK6LW, VK6T, and also holds the call sign G4EHF, for their 4DX beam antennas column published in October 2024 RADCOM.
And now to the Wortley Talbot Trophy. This is awarded for the most outstanding experimental work in amateur radio, and this goes to Gwyn Griffiths, G3ZIL, and this is for his series of articles that were published in RADCOM during 2024, but in particular for the Height of Reflections at HF, published in the August 2024 issue of RADCOM.
The Harold Rose Trophy is awarded for outstanding contribution to 50 megahertz, and this year it goes to Kerry Rochester, G8VR and G0LCS, for his tireless support to 50 megahertz operators and activities.
And now the Lou Varney Cup for advances in space communication. This year this is awarded to Professor Sir Martin Sweeting, G3YJO, for his considerable contribution to the amateur radio satellite community for almost 50 years.
The Fraser Shepherd Award is awarded for research into microwave applications for radio communications. And this year it's awarded to Dave Fielding, G8KHU, and Dave Haynes, G1TVL, for their outstanding and innovative contributions to operating on 122 gigahertz.
And now to the 1962 Committee Cup. This is awarded for outstanding amateur radio development at VHF and UHF. And this year this goes to Tim Fern, G4LOH, for his highly original, groundbreaking research into 144 MHz ionoscatter.
The Don Cameron G4STT Award is awarded for an outstanding contribution to low-power amateur radio communications. And this year it goes to Nick Wood, M0NTV, for significant contributions to QRP and Homebrew.
And now the Les Barkley Memorial Award, awarded to recognise those who have made excellent contributions to propagation research and understanding, ranging from conducting original research through to spreading knowledge about propagation and inspiring interest amongst amateurs. This goes to Nathaniel Frizzle, W2NAF, for his major contribution to propagation and raising the profile of amateur radio-based citizen science.
And now we come to Calcutta Key, which is awarded for outstanding service to international friendship through amateur radio. And this time it goes to Professor Sir Martin Sweeting, G3YJO, for his contribution to satellite communications, UK amateur radio through the Radio Communications Foundation, and his personal demonstration that amateur radio can lead to significant benefit to the UK economy. Sir Martin is a renowned academic engineer and businessman of great influence and distinction. He is chairman of the Surrey Space Centre and a distinguished professor at the University of Surrey. Moving on now to the Founders' Cup, which is awarded for outstanding services to the Society. And this year goes to Kieran Morgan, M0XTD, for his outstanding contribution to RS, amateur radio and the ISS, and all the associated outreach. Kieran masterminded his first RS school contact with the ISS in October 2008 with the British-born astronaut Richard Garriott. The most recent contact held at Brooklyn Museum and organised in collaboration with RSGB and at Girl Guiding Surrey West, which was undertaken in the presence of HRH, the Duchess of Edinburgh. Next down to a Lifetime Achievement Award, which is awarded to recognise an outstanding contribution to amateur radio over an extended period. This goes to Alan Katz, G2UIH, unfortunately now Sound Key, for his outstanding contribution to amateur radio EME communications, which is often known as moonbounce. known for his enthusiasm, persistence, and unwavering support from his wife Sally, Al's impact was profound. His passing leaves a significant void in both the academic and amateur radio communities, but his legacy will continue to inspire future generations. Then, lifetime a board special award for services to the DX community. The MM0 UKI Rockhall team, Nobby Styles, G0VJG, Emil Bergman, D8LJ, and expedition leader Cam Cameron. The board gives a special award for contribution to the DX community to the 2023 MM0 UKI D expedition to Rockwell Island in the Oscar 37 Delta Oscar, IOTA EU 189, the rarest and most remote IOTA and grid square in the UK and Crown dependencies. The expedition raised sponsorship to support armed forces charities, with Cam remaining on the island after the operation left before having to be evacuated by helicopter as the weather deteriorated.
Thank you, John. We will now announce the winners of the construction competition. I'd like to thank everyone who submitted an entry for this year's competition. We hope to feature some of the projects in future RADCOM issues. Each category winner and highly commended entrant will receive £150. The judges have also chosen a runner-up in 2 of the categories. These people will win a £50 RSGB book voucher. The overall winner will receive an additional £150 and the Pat Hawker G3VA award. Peter will run us through the list.
Thank you, Stuart. Firstly, the antennas section. The winner is John Matthews, G3WZT, for his project 2-meter Yagi. The judges felt this was an excellent lightweight beam antenna that was a variation on the power beam. Great project for others to try, albeit it has an 8.3 meter boom. The runner-up in that category is David Littlewood, G6DCT, for his project an HF loop for 20 meter FT8 operation. The judges commended this design, including the use of recycled components. In the construction excellence section, the winner is Pat McAllister, G3YFK, for his project Off-Air Standard. This was a beautifully constructed project, albeit somewhat dated in design and practicality. The runner-up is David Littlewood, G6DCT, the project Dual Band HF Receiver. The judges thought this was a very nicely made project which reminded them of the old days of homebrew construction. An excellent project suitable for replication by others. In the innovation category, the winner is Russell Tribe, G4SAQ, the project a 50-volt 1.5 kilowatt power supply with current limiting. The judges appreciated the novel approach to project construction using readily available LED drivers with the software-controlled current sensing, a nice innovative solution to the problem presented. In the software section, the winner is Ian Renton, M0TRT, for the project Field Spotter, a nice application with very practical uses tested by a board director during a recent SOTA of activation. Highly commended awards go to Alistair Watt, G3ZBU, for the project Simple 40-meter CW transceiver. The judges felt this was a nice project that was an excellent take on an old tried and tested design, ideal for replication by beginners to homebrew radio. Another highly commended award goes to John Trinder, GM0HYY, for his project WSPR Beacon. A combination of construction excellence and software made this a favourite of the judges. The overall construction competition winner and recipient of the Pat Hawker G3VA award is Ian Renton, M0TRT, for his Field Spotter project. The judges felt that the Field Spotter had the potential to encourage and enable a large number of QSOs to be facilitated within portable operations and thought there was great practical use in the application. The judges were therefore delighted to offer this software entry the overall winner position. Congratulations to all. Now back to Stuart.
Thank you, Peter. The judges would like to praise all the entrants, including those that were not mentioned, for taking the time to bring their projects to the attention of the RSGB. In addition, we offered categories for beginners and for outreach projects. We did not receive any entries for these, But if you make something over the coming months that would fit into these categories, we would love to hear from you. Please send details to comms@rsgb.org.uk. Members have been able to submit written questions to the board in advance of the meeting and also to register a question live on video via Zoom. We will also take questions via the YouTube live chat. Whilst we welcome all questions, due to time constraints, priority will be given to questions submitted in advance and to questions asked by RSGB members on the live chat. We'll begin with some of those submitted in advance. David Palmer, G7 URP, will facilitate this Q&A.
Thank you, Stuart. Our first advanced question is about recruiting young people. It's submitted by Jason Gardner, G7 RUX, and I'm going to ask Ben to answer this for us. What concrete steps are being taken or planned to be taken by the board to deal with the issue of recruitment of younger members to the RSGB and to the hobby in general? Ben.
Okay, thank you, David. Firstly, hello, Jason, and thank you for your question. Can I first mention John McCulloch's President review? This showed the amount of work the RSGB are doing to engage with youth, to showcase the hobby and attract new licensees. I've been the board liaison for youth over the past 18 months. In those 18 months, I've put a structure in place which concentrates on growing amateur radio in different UK youth organisations. We now have enthusiastic and proactive youth champions and the youth chair. The youth champions all have their individual role. One to engage with schools, one to engage with universities, and one to engage with scouts, girl guiding groups, and cadet groups. We are looking for a fourth if anyone would like to work in our successful team, so please contact me for more details. I'm not sure if you've seen all our success stories over the past 12 months, but these can be found on the RSGB website. There are also more to come very soon. We are trying our best to target all schools in the UK, whether it be through an ARIS contact, which concentrates on space, and young people like this exciting stuff, as you saw from some of John's slides. British Science Week is a very popular event where we managed to get one of our amateur radio activities included in the UK pack this year. This will certainly help attract young people to the hobby, and we have also begun a relationship with the British Science Week organisation for the future. We have also created our own activities for all youth organisations, which includes schools. For example, you will see soon the FM radio receiver kit that was offered out free to youth organisations to build over the British Science Week, funded by the RSGB and the RCF. We have coming up very soon a DMR project aimed at schools. This offer will be shared very soon. The schools who reach out to us have had a great experience in the past, and they continue to get in touch. Which is great. It shows we are doing something right. It would be nice if we could expand our support and help other schools get involved with the amateur radio hobby. To enable us to do this, we need the schools and your help to contact us and get in touch, asking what they would like us to do. We have 3 great youth champions who are extremely motivated on interacting with more youth organisations across the UK. We would do our utmost best to support young people to feel welcome in the amateur radio hobby. There is a lot of aspects we can offer, so please, if you are listening to my answer and you have contacts within any local youth organisations, whether it be schools, university, scouts, school guiding groups and cadets, or any kind of youth organisation, please ask them to get in touch. I also look after the outreach team, who are a team of 10 enthusiastic amateurs who work together creating resources to attract the younger generation to the hobby and attend events, putting on build-a-thons or activities for the youth. You will see more of this happening in the future. I will be presenting a presentation shortly on what we have planned for the coming year, youth-related. So please keep listening if you'd like to know more. I hope I've answered your question in full, Jason, but please feel free to email me direct if you require any further information. All my details are on the RSGB website. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much, Ben. Next advanced question again. This is about RSGB membership. I'm going to ask this of Stuart, and it was submitted by Peter Duffett-Smith, GM3XJE.
Thank you, Peter.
I believe that it may be the case that the majority of radio amateurs in the UK are not members of the Society. Why is this, and what does the RSGB board intend to do about it?
Thank you, Peter. When we consider membership levels versus licence numbers in the UK, we have to be very careful to distinguish between licence holders and active radio amateurs. The two are very different and quite difficult to quantify. Mark and I did some work on this year based on open source data. So we've done, what we've tried to look at is understand the percentage of active amateurs that are members of the Society. Some examples of our findings are, for example, we looked at the number of LOTW members. You can extract the database as public information, and we found that just under 1,500 of the G calls, of the British calls of all types, were members out of a total of 2,322. This is a percentage of 65%. But when we looked at it drilled down by different types of license, we found that 39% of the foundation licenses, of whom there were only 110, were members. And then for intermediate, we found that there were 123 members out of 277 intermediate calls, which was 44%. And full licenses, there were 1,260-ish, out of 1,741, which is 72%. We look at Super Check Partial, we found that 68% out of 1,841 were RSGB members. We looked at the complete list of unadjudicated RSGB logs, which are available on our website. And we found that 2,119 were RSGB members out of a total of 3,473, which was 61%. And then I looked at the Whisper stats for last year and found that 48% of people who made a Whisper transmission or reception were RSGB members. Generally speaking, we found that the more that the person had progressed through the license structure, the more likely the individual was to be a member of the Society. This study has provided us with a useful baseline so that we can run the numbers again in the future and begin to look at trends. However, it was surprising to us how high the number of members were when looking at active call signs from the data we can obtain, with 51% of active call signs from all sources being members of the Society. As we embark on our strategic growth objective, we will now have a statistical baseline to judge our success or otherwise against.
Thanks very much, Stuart. Now we have another advanced question about the QSL Bureau, and it's submitted by Chris Coldclough, G1 VDP. And again, I'm going to ask Stuart to answer this. As Richard Constantine is retiring as the Bureau Manager and distributor of Bureau cards this April, date given to me at Newark in Conversation, could the board please advise on what is happening with the Bureau and what are the plans for a new tender to be submitted?
Thank you, Chris. So the board recognises that the QSL Bureau is an important service for a number of our members. The RSGB is committed to ensuring that members have access to a paper QSL service as a member benefit for as long as there's a reasonable demand. The international QSL system remains operational and it can be provided at an acceptable cost to the membership as a whole. We do need to be cognizant of the fact that member usage of the QSL Bureau is in decline, both in number of members that use the system and in card volume. We should also note that a significant number of the cards sent to QSL sub-managers are not collected and are thus discarded as paper waste. The RSGB has established a small team that are building a process model for a future-proofed QSL Bureau operating in the environment of 2025 and beyond. This study will be the basis of commercial discussions with potential suppliers and with the intention to modernise the Bureau and provide greater value to members at the same time.
Thank you, Stuart. Another advanced question now. This one's about contests. I'm going to ask Peter to answer this. It was submitted by Leslie Thomas, GM0TKB, who asks, would it be possible to alter the scoring system in RSGB CC contests to ameliorate the handicap of the more distant location clubs? Perhaps something similar to the UKEI contest based on contact distance. Peter.
Thanks, David, and thanks, Leslie, for your question. Contest rules are under constant review by the two RSGB contest committees, and the committees are always pleased to hear from entrants and non-entrants as to their views on rules, scoring systems, calendars, and so on. And I think the best thing to do with the question is to forward it to the HF Contest Committee, because we're talking about the successful 80-metre club championship series of contests here, to forward it to them for consideration in their next review, which happens towards the end of every year. And so I will be doing that with this question, and I'd also like to extend the invitation to anyone who has questions or representations to make about contesting topics. The people that deal with those contests day to day are the contest committees, and they'd always be pleased to hear from you. Or if anybody wants to inquire of me, then my details are on the RSGB website on the board page, and I'm always pleased to hear from members. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Peter. Another advanced question now. This is about foundation exams, so I'm going to ask Len to answer this. It was submitted by Rose Oldershaw, 2E0RXO. Will the board consider foundation examinations to be taken by prisoners in UK HMP prisons? I've been asked about this, but I'm still waiting for a response. And then I saw the post about this. So Len, please.
Thanks, David, and to you, Rose, for the question. The RSGB and Ofcom have no objections to exams having sit in a prison. Any limitations would be down to the prison service, and if allowed, a candidate could sit a written exam in prison, but prison service volunteers act as invigilators. I contacted our local prison yesterday, and the advice given was to email the appropriate prison to see what options are available, and we can take it from there. Back to you, David.
Okay, thank you, Len. This is a live question now that's come in. It's about youth licensees. So I'll ask Ben and Len to take this. This is submitted by Tim Hire, G5TM. What are the actual number of under 21-year-olds becoming licensed in 2024, and has this figure increased? So Ben first, please.
Okay, thank you very much, David, for this question. With the exam stats, I think that would be a question to answer by Len. But we have had an increase in exams, youth exams. I can also say we've had an increase of youth engaging with us as the youth team. So send in through emails asking, how do we become an exam? I know the RCF are promoting free exams for youth at the moment. So again, if anybody's listening to my answer here, please either contact myself for more information or look on the RCF website. They do they do have free exams for youth, and I know that they're starting to see some interest with this scheme. So the youth are definitely coming to take exams. But as for numbers, Len, would you be able to help me on this question?
I'm afraid the spreadsheet I have at the moment does not actually record that. We do record the number of candidates under 21. We record the age of all candidates taking the exam. It's something I can get back to the questioner on, but I don't actually have the figure at the moment. If the question had been submitted in advance, I'd had an opportunity to get that information for the person.
Well, and just adding on from what Len said, it can be found. So please reach out. Again, as I said, my email details are on the website, and I'm quite gladly get the information for you to send over. But we are seeing more and more youth contact us to become licensed.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Ben and Len. Next, an advanced question. This is about licensing. I'll ask Stuart to take this. It's submitted by Andrew Moore, 2E0HUY. What is the RSGB doing to speed up the new issuance of M8 and M9 call signs following the decision regarding 2E0, 2E1 intermediate licenses? And would the board look to the changing from an exam system for the full licence to a graduated full licence, given we are an inclusive organisation and some are better learning through experience than passing a written test based on the theory? Stuart.
Thank you, Andrew. Regrettably, the issuance of M8 and M9 call signs has been delayed by the need for the regulator to prioritise business radio in their development of their new licensing platform, and thus, unfortunately, we must wait in the queue. Hopefully, the new call signs will be released soon. And now to the second part of your question. The cornerstone of the administration of the amateur radio licence by any government are the radio regulations. This is an international treaty and thus a government obligation. One element of these international agreements covers the qualification for a Harrick certificate, which permits amateur radio operation in many other countries. The certificate is tied to an examination syllabus, which in the UK aligns with the full licence. Thus, an exam-free path from intermediate to full seemed unlikely in the foreseeable future. And I'm sorry, that's probably not the answer you wanted, but I believe that that is the current state of the law.
Could I jump in just a little bit? As I was at a meeting of the Exam Standards Committee, which had Ofcom a couple of weeks ago. A presentation was given by Exam Standards Review Group on alternative modular ways of progressing through the exams. This was Ofcom thought it was something that was worth putting more work into. It's going to be some time down the way before we can consider whether this is possible, but it is something we're looking at and working with Ofcom on.
Thank you, Len. Okay,
thank you both. Next question is actually also an advanced question on licensing. So again, I'll ask Stuart if that's all right, if you could take this. This is from Andy Brown, 2E0VPX. Changes to the license have been positive, but we need to be more radical. It is no longer realistic to expect those who want to try the hobby to first sit an exam. Exams act as a barrier to thousands of individuals who might make excellent amateurs. To address this, we need an exam-free licence and an introductory band which can be used to try amateur radio. Is the RSGB willing to consider more radical measures to reverse the decline, make the amateur radio more accessible and expand the hobby? Stuart.
Thank you. As I noted in my previous answer, access to the amateur bands is governed by a treaty, and this requires assessment through an examination before access to the amateur bands can be licensed. An important aspect of this examination is the need to ensure that the operator causes no harm either to themselves or to others. Preparation for the exams is made possible through the excellent and readily available online courses, and the examinations are available online at a time of the candidate's choosing. The pass rate for the foundation licence in 2024 was around 86%. Thus, examinations are required by international law. Preparation for and the examinations themselves are straightforward, and the success rate is encouragingly high. However, let's pick up on another aspect of the question. An important facility that we were pleased to see in the new licence and we strongly encourage the regulators' support is the section that permits anyone to operate any amateur radio station under the direct supervision of its licensee. This is a facility that we as a community and clubs in particular should use at every opportunity. This facility enables prospective radio amateurs to gain guided entrance into amateur radio operation and puts them on a path that is more likely to result in a long-term successful engagement with the hobby. Back to you, David.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. Next question is a live question. This is about interference, so I'll ask Len to take this. Submitted by Troy Reynolds, G7LHK. What help can the RSGB provide with what is termed direct QRM, where interference is intended to nets such as the GB2RS news broadcasts, the Royal Signals net, and other such as RAFA-RS nets? Len.
Unfortunately, amateur radio is not a protected service, and as such, a certain amount of interference is to be expected. The Operation Advisory Service can give advice on how to handle this type of information. In severe cases where it goes beyond the normal squeakies, etc., the person actually receiving the abuse or interference should contact Ofcom directly, and they will take appropriate action should this problem permit. They will not, unfortunately, take action on just an occasional denial of service, etc. And given the limited resources of Ofcom, that's going to be expected. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Len. The next question is an advanced question. It's all about amateur radio in SEND schools, special educational needs and disability schools, that is. I'm going to ask this to Ben and then Nathan. Submitted by Jack Joyce, M7OFM. It is nice to see schools invited to be part of amateur radio. However, it always appears to be the same types of schools. What is the board's strategy to include SEND schools, and what provision has the board specifically made to make sure that disabled and neurodiverse young people are made to feel welcome in the hobby? Ben first, please.
Okay, thank you, David. And yeah, hi, Jack. Thank you very much for taking the time to reach out to us. This is a really good question. Currently, we do not have a specific diversity strategy in place for schools. But being the board liaison for youth, this is something I'd really like to focus on going forward, but with the right support. If there's anyone out there, maybe yourself, Jack, that could get in touch to help with some ideas, please do so. We would be very, very, very proactive to get something sorted. Did you watch the June 2024 episode of Tonight at 8? This webinar explained how diverse colleagues have adapted their equipment, written software, or used extra support from the RSGB or other radio amateurs to enable them to enjoy all that amateur radio has to offer. It's a really interesting watch. Please feel free to contact me, Jack. All details are on the RSGB website, and I'd be happy to share the link with you so you could see the Tonight at 8 program. To answer your SEND schools question, if you know of any SEND school that would like to take part in British Science Week, for example, next year, please do ask them to get in touch with our British Science Week coordinator, Professor Ian Neal. Ian really wants to be inclusive and would love to hear from you. I hope I've answered your questions to the best of my ability, and please do pop me an email if you need any further information or support.
Thanks very much, Ben. Actually, just as well to let you know, if you're watching this and look at the live chat, we've actually put Ben's email address on there directly. It's from the Radio Society of Great Britain. But now, Nathan, have you got something to add to this, please?
Yeah, I would add, as part of my accessibility role, as part of board liaison, I'm always looking for people who can certainly help with this. So if you've got any knowledge or anything where you could help or experience, which would give the RSGB a way forward and help people more long term, that would be great. And you can either contact me or Ben, and we'll work together to solve and progress this further in the next year or so.
Okay, thank you, Ben and Nathan. I hope that helps, Jack, and please get in touch if you can help with that as well, or anybody else watching, of course. Next is an advanced question. It's all about the RSGB name, so I'm going to ask Stuart and then probably John to take these. It's been submitted by Paul Stewart, M0KXR. Given that the RSGB's raison d'entrée is to represent all amateurs in England, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, is it not time now for a name change with a rebrand, such as the Radio Society of the United Kingdom or RSUK, to better reflect this purpose and to be more inclusive of all operators in the whole of the United Kingdom. As it stands, the current name is perceived by not a few amateurs in Northern Ireland as exclusionary. So, Stuart, first, please.
Thank you, Paul. The RSGB does indeed represent all radio amateurs in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and the Crown dependencies. If we were to change our name, we would have to do so in a fully inclusive way. However, something like RSUK CD doesn't really roll off the tongue very well. Now, let's look at this at a higher level. The RSGB is a brand name that's widely recognised, respected and valued throughout the world to the benefit of all of our members. Changing our name would be a major financial, administrative and opportunity cost, and we would discard a century of history and influence in amateur radio. I think therefore we would do well to continue to accept RSGB as the well-known shortening of the Radio Society of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and the Crown dependencies. John, GI4BWM, has lived his life in Northern Ireland and can perhaps comment from the perspective of local knowledge.
Yeah, Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Stuart. Yes, indeed. As a GI, if I can use that term, and an RSGB member for 50 plus years, I've never felt disenfranchised by the name, nor have I actually heard any local groundswell of opinion to change it. When you also consider that in the past 30 years there have been 4 RSGB presidents from Northern Ireland, you could hardly say that we're unrepresented either. So I'm very proud of the name RSGB, proud to represent it. And I think all the people, and most of the people in Northern Ireland are very happy with the name. I'm surprised to even hear the question mentioned, but thank you for the thought, Paul.
Okay, I hope that's answered that, Paul. Thank you both to Stuart and John. Next question is an advanced question. It's about a membership card. I'm going to ask this of Steve. It's been submitted by Mark Farnham, M0KXF. Is there an opportunity to produce a credit-sized plastic card that will show call sign and RSGB membership number? As if I wish to visit our NRC, I have to remember to take a copy of my licence with me, or if I'm asked if I'm an RSGB member, organisations have to take this on trust. Can this also indicate that I have an active amateur radio licence? Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's a really interesting question, and one which I've long wanted to explore, if I'm honest. One of our main members' benefits is free entry into Bletchley Park, where, as you saw in John's video earlier, we operate the RSGB National Radio Centre, introducing over 80,000 people each year to amateur radio. And we receive some fantastic feedback from visitors that go there. So a huge thank you while I'm here. A huge thank you to our team of 60 volunteers who work with us at the National Radio Centre. To allow our members access, we operate a voucher scheme through our membership portal on the website for access to Bletchley Park, in agreement and in a format which is acceptable to the management at Bletchley Park. So we have to conform to what they need in this circumstance. Having said that, as we add more members' benefits, perhaps for other venues and attractions, I'd very much like to make this more flexible and accessible, perhaps via electronic presentation, where that is acceptable to those venues. This also gives us the opportunity to give something tangible to members, which I think was probably your point, which they can show if required. However, we have to be cautious as well, because we can't use it to prove ownership of a current amateur radio license, which was part of your question, without considerable involvement of Ofcom. Ofcom as the licensing authority, of course, of the current valid license information, and we only see that at a fixed point of the year when we produce the RSGB yearbook. And even then, some details are withheld. People choose to. So we have to be cautious about the part of your question relating to an active amateur radio license. So I think there's some things that I would love to explore in it. I don't think we can do all of it, but it's definitely on my list of things to have a look at. So thanks, Mark. A great question, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to answer it.
It does help, Mark. Thank you very much, Steve. Next, we have a live question. This one is about exams, so I'll ask this of Len. This has been submitted by Martin Hunt M0JZT. How much is it costing the Society to use an external exam company? Clubs used to attract new members when people came along for training and exams. Len?
Thanks for the question. Unfortunately, I can't give you the exact amount. We do pay a licence to our software company. It's around about £6 per licence. Everything else is absorbed within RSGB, either as administrative costs, headquarters, or invigilators, etc., are all done free of charge. But to say our current system provider charges round about £6 per licence per exam.
Okay, thanks then. So just to clarify, that is £6 per exam that someone pays, the whole licence fee, and the rest of it goes, of course, to the RSGB for administering that service. His other point there was that it was clubs used to attract new members when people came along for training and exams, and I think obviously now a lot of people are going and taking their exams online. They maybe don't need clubs so much. Are there other ways? So I'm slightly broadening the question, but are there other ways that you think clubs can help attract new members when already many people are taking their exams and taking their licenses online?
It's something it's quite important to me, being the club secretary, club exam secretary of one club. We do provide training within the actual club. We do not provide exam facilities. We allow individual members to do that. However, there is absolutely no reason for clubs to provide online exams which are invigilated locally. You don't need to have the remote invigilation to that. So that would be an opportunity for exams to promote what they can do for the general membership. Also, we are in the midst of looking at providing additional training which can be provided, this is RSGB training, which can be presented by the clubs, and this would give the clubs another unique selling feature.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yes, sure. Please go ahead.
I just want to make sure that that members realise we're not making a profit on exams. Steve may wish to add to this. Len quoted a number which is less than we actually charge for exams, but we have to pay for all of the HQ administration and other things that go on to put together the system, and we are scrupulously careful to make sure that we do not make a profit on exams. We do our best, absolutely, to break even. So the cost you see is the cost it actually costs.
That's correct, Stuart. But the question was what we paid, our supplier to do that. You're quite correct. Costs are at a no-profit basis. This is part of the service level agreement we have with Ofcom. I would argue, and have argued, that we actually subsidise the service by not recovering the entire amount of overheads we could do. We don't operate this out of a porta cabin in the middle of nowhere. We do have our headquarters, and all costs have to be distributed at an appropriate level, and this is where we come out from the exams. One of the things that I am often minded is when I sat my exam some 40 years ago, by the time I paid my sitting guilds fees, my fees to the college to do it, it wasn't a heck of a lot less than what it is at the moment. I still think we provide extremely good value for money. But to say the figure I was quoting was the license fee, which is how we do it with it. All other costs are recoverable costs with no profit element.
Okay, thank you very much, Len and Stuart, for that. Next, we have an advanced question. This is actually also about the exam syllabus, so I'll ask Len at least first to answer this. This has been submitted by the Essex Ham organisation, MX0SXA. In Essex Ham's annual survey, the top topic of concern was exam syllabus, best summed up by this question. Why will RSGB not accept that today's new radio hams no longer design and build transceivers? HARIC compliance is needed for full, but to attract new people into the hobby, and given Ofcom's recent relaxation of the rules, does the board feel that the time is right to reassess the RSGB's criteria, both for the new entrants and for those keen to progress to intermediate? So I'd like to go to Len first on that, please.
So although HARIC only applies to full licence conditions, it's still an IRU requirement for a licensee to have an appropriate technical knowledge. With about 3,000 candidates sitting an exam last year and a pass rate of over 80%, it's not thought by Ofcom as a significant debar to holding an amateur radio licence. Ofcom have also requested recently that there be more technical content into the intermediate licence to reflect improved privileges. So, I mean, it's not a case where we can do our own thing. We have to be mindful of our requirements under international strategy. Given the number of people sitting the exams and the pass rate, particularly at foundation licences, it's not thought there is a particular problem of them. As I intimated earlier, we are in a very early stage having a look at different methods of achieving our international requirements, possibly through a more modular approach. However, these are a very early stage, might not go anywhere, but certainly worth investigating. Back to you.
Thanks, Len. Anybody else on the board like to respond to this? I've heard it, I must admit, said in my club quite a bit as well about making sure everything is relevant now. Anybody else on the board like to take something on this?
The only other kind of supplementary questions I would say, you will be aware from those that went to the convention, the whole point of the HARIC syllabus and updating this was raised. I do know this is something else that's an early stage. I know that one of the groups that I'm charging are having a look at it. I suspect this will happen, but I will not hold my breath till it happens. Anything's done at an international level is done at a glacial speed, and say don't hold your breath, but I think it will definitely happen sooner rather than later.
Okay, Len.
I'd just like to pick up on the construction side. Construction is one of the sort of major fulfilling activities in amateur radio for many people. And there are many people for whom operating is just a method of proving that your construction worked. So we do have to understand that there are many people who like and have different sort of needs from amateur radio and and excited by different things. And so we should we need to take that into account. Okay,
thank you, Stuart, and Len as well. Now, the next question is an advanced question. I'm going to ask John to answer this. It's submitted by Paul Gaskell, G4MWO. Lack of ITU WRC 15 amateur service secondary 5351.5 to 5366.5 kHz 15 watts EIRP. Recently, this long-standing UK impasse surfaced in GB2RS and RADCOM. I propose the following. Implement the WRC 15 sector in its entirety as an extra. The reasoning behind this: 1. The Ofcom UK frequency allocation tables only list the WRC 15 worldwide allocation. 2. The low power should not give problems and is legal. And 3. It is the only common global amateur EMACOMS sector on 5 megahertz. So over to you, John.
Okay, thank you, David. And hello, Paul. Lovely to hear from you after all these years. And I remember our times in the emergency communications community. And I feel your pain on 5 megahertz as well. We have already been through many permutations of the possible options for 5 megs with the regulator, including a reduced power that you suggest. But the primary user remains quite resolute and unwilling to deviate from the privileges already conceded. We do feel your frustration, and like all things spectrum, the related, of course, can continue to keep it under review and continue to press for changes when we can. At the moment, there doesn't seem any likelihood of it. And I think having the segments that we have with the higher power is probably better than possibly, and we have to be careful too, of course, to maintain those segments and to work within them, as has been mentioned in GB2RS and our outcome that you referred to there. And we wouldn't want to lose the band if we strayed outside. So unfortunately, we're stuck with the decisions of the primary user at the moment, and we will keep it under review. Thank you, Paul. Over to you, David.
Thanks very much, John. And now another advance question. This is about the syllabus, so I'm going to ask Len to take it first. Submitted by Trevor Jones, G7REV. I was a member of the ESRG for 6 months last year. I left due to the committee's intransigence to following the prescribed syllabus when setting questions. Does the board think this attitude is exacerbating the loss of active trainers and local club courses? Len.
Thank you for your question, Trevor. I'm sorry to hear that you thought that the SRG was being intransigent. A full review of the question bank to ensure that the questions are clearly worded, in scope and within the requirements of syllabus is currently being undertaken. The question bank at full level has already been completed. The intermediate level is expected to be completed by the end of the month, and foundation thereafterwards. It's also intended to publish the questions bank shortly. Historically, clubs have had a near monopoly of training. The rise of online and distant learning courses, together with exams being available on demand, has removed this key selling feature. Whilst many clubs and independent trainers might find this regrettable, but with 3,000 candidates sitting exams last year, the current system is not seen as a significant debar to becoming a radio amateur. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Len. Advanced question now regarding the AGM location. So I'll ask this to Stuart. It's been submitted by Peter Hardy, G3VNH. Does the Society have any plans to reinstate future AGMs at various venues around the country as it used to be? Stuart.
Thank you, Peter. So the board does consider this each year. Experiences in the past have showed that whilst in-person events were very enjoyable, relatively few members attended such AGMs. Online AGMs are much more accessible to more members, be they in this country or overseas. They are thus better attended. We have considered a mixed in-person online event, but this is technically and logistically significantly more difficult than either an in-person event or a pure online event. We do provide opportunities for members to meet members of the board at events such as the RSGB Convention, the National Hamfest, and at various rallies such as the Blackpool Rally tomorrow. If any member wants to talk to members of the board on other occasions, then please reach out to us. Our contact details and special responsibilities are all listed on the RSGB website. Thank you. Back to you, David.
Thank you, Stuart. Another question in advance, this time about online information for new radio amateurs. So I'm going to ask Steve to take this. This has been submitted by Essex Ham, MX0SXA. Essex Ham released a video in February highlighting the difficulties experienced by newcomers to the hobby looking for information on how to get started. This highlighted numerous challenges navigating the RSGB's website and the new Club Finder. Does the board feel that the current user experience for newcomers visiting the Society's website, as highlighted in the video, is acceptable? Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Good to hear from you, of course, as always. And we have been looking at the information for newcomers on the website for some time. And I've actually had two of my team looking specifically at that content relating to getting started, as we call it, on the website from their positions which relate to exams and marketing, but with some volunteer help as well. So yes, we are working through it. I think this also relates to points which you raise about clubs' websites, which we might link out to from Club Finder or for training recommendations as well. Even though we want to support clubs absolutely in any way we can, it can be difficult to keep their information up to date, and we'd really encourage clubs to work with our regional teams where they have any problems or need some help. However, longer term, And now that we've worked on our back-end membership systems, which allowed us to launch the new digital platform recently, with more development still to come on that, we're now going to turn our attention to the overall website. So we do a tremendous amount of media publicity, an increasing amount of outreach work, as you've heard, to attract people into amateur radio. But yes, absolutely, no denial. It's definitely very fair to say that the website needs some attention to make it more attractive and to give people more information. When we get them interested in amateur radio, what do they do next? So absolutely, no argument. It's on the list. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Now another live question been asked about licensing. So I'm going to ask Stuart to take this. It's been submitted by Simon York, 2E0WPP. Could there be an alternative intermediate and full license which is watered down for those who will never build their own equipment? As a disabled user, I only buy store kit. Stuart?
Well, I think as I explained earlier, and I think as Len explained, I think I might get him to say a few words here. The requirements for the license are sort of established by Ofcom and by international sort of treaty. So it seems unlikely that in the short term we could do anything. But Len is actually actively engaged in some of the more modern discussions over in the ESRG and might want to comment on that.
Thanks for that, Stuart. There's no requirement to construct anything under the intermediate license at the moment, so the construction element, etc., is not a concern regarding sitting your exam for the exam at that level. Ofcom, however, did approach ESRG last year in advance of the improved licence conditioning, basically requiring us to up the technical level at intermediate to reflect the forthcoming improvements in the licence conditions and terms. I personally feel that it's maybe gone a wee bit too far. And it's getting too close to the full licence. We have had conversations with Ofcom. Again, as I said earlier on, these are at an early stage. I only took on requirements for, responsibilities for exams last year. These type of things tend to go on for some considerable time. But as I say, at the moment, no requirement for any construction. The technical element is harder than what it used to be at Ofcom's requirement. We are having conversations about different ways of looking at examinations, and I expect the comments that you've made to be part of that conversation.
I'd just like to add some small other piece to that, and that's that construction doesn't mean soldering irons anymore. There are many software-defined radios in various forms that can be bought as a fully constructed item. And what you do to make them work is actually to write computer software. And indeed, you can get AI assistants to write some of that computer software, as people may know from some of the talks I've given recently. So I don't see construction these days as meaning screwdriver and soldering iron anymore. Construction means building new things from your head to cause physical actions, and that can be done in software. And there are many people who find it hard to pick up a soldering iron or use a screwdriver, who are more than capable of writing software.
Okay, thank you both for that. Another advanced question now. Reason for volunteering as board chair has been submitted by Vasil Terzif, LZ3SCO. I'll ask Stuart to take that first, and then maybe Peter can come in. What is your motivation to become chairman? Thank you, and 7-3. So Stuart first, please.
Thank you, Vasil. I hope I pronounced your name right. Before I answer, I should explain that Vasil is one of the youngest members of the RSGB, and I believe he is attending the AGM here. The RSGB plays an important role in amateur radio, both in the United Kingdom and the rest of the world. We organise exams, we talk to the government and radio amateurs in other countries about the various rules. We publish amateur radio books, magazines and videos. We run the National Radio Centre at Bletchley Park, which introduces amateur radio to many ordinary members of the public. And we do many other things to help amateur radio amateurs enjoy their hobby. Amateur radio played an important role in my time at school and at university, and at helping me in various stages of my career. Over the years, it has helped me to learn about many new technologies. I serve on the RSGB board as a volunteer as a way of giving back to the amateur radio community and saying thank you for the huge benefit I have gained from amateur radio throughout my life. The role of the chair is like that of the conductor of an orchestra in working with my fellow directors, RSGB volunteers, and of course all our staff to bring all the activities of the Society together to serve amateur radio as a whole. This is a role that I am honoured to have been asked by my colleagues to undertake. Do you want to add anything, Peter?
Thanks, Stuart, and thanks so much for the question. And it's good to get an opportunity to be a little introspective about why one's spending one Saturday morning at an AGM like this. I agree with everything Stuart has said. I think from my point of view, it's an opportunity to use some of the skills that I've learned and used throughout my career in a professional capacity, but apply them to a situation where they can also be appropriate in a hobby capacity. I'm proud to sit on the board, honoured to serve as Stuart's deputy chair, and participate in some of the decision-making processes and helping the Society along, so that hopefully when the questioner becomes a more mature person as we are, then they will possibly consider taking on the mantle, and hopefully there'll be a good set of people to hand the helm over to when we eventually retire. So thank you so much for the question. I look forward to seeing you on the board.
Yeah, thank you very much to Stuart and Peter there. I hope that's helped you, Vessel. Thanks for the question. Next we have an advanced question, and this is about book reviews. I'm going to ask Steve to take this. It's from Peter Jones, M0LMG. Is it possible to have independent reviews of books in RSGB Radcom? Every review seems completely positive rather than an honest review. Thanks. Steve?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Good to hear from you. I think this is an important point, and I'd love members to be able to read good independent recommendations and reviews of the books we sell. But do remember that we commission many of the books we sell, and probably the most prolific producer of English language books for the amateur radio market in the world. But we also source existing books which we think will be of interest to radio amateurs, as well as commission them. So in effect, we do curate an extensive library of excellent books which we think are worthy of consideration. But it's definitely something we can do. And Peter, I know you've done proofreading for us in the past and supported us in other ways recently. So perhaps you'd like to offer some book reviews too. I'm sure Mark, who manages our book publications, and Ed, our Radcom editor, would be very grateful to hear from you and anyone else who's interested in working with us to either author or review books and articles. It's a constant moving market, you can imagine. We've talked just now about how technology changes, so we're always looking for people to write knowledgeably from at any level, maybe at beginner level or more advanced level, on a topic that they're really passionate about and we think other people would like to read about as well. So that's authors and reviews as well. It is quite challenging to keep up with finding authors, but it's really important that we make the best use of the considerable pool of skills which exist within our amateur radio community. You know, we've got this, we often say that we're not just a bookshop, because we do so many other things, spectrum defense, things like that. But it's an important members benefit. It's something that we value producing, and we really want to work with the amateur community to both create the books, review them, and share that with members and radio amateurs generally. So hopefully if people come forward to offer those reviews and authors, we'd love to work with people.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. I hope that helps Peter as well. Maybe we'll see you reviewing some of the books as well soon. Now, the next question's from live chat. It concerns the exam syllabus and a similar sort of theme to what we've seen several times this morning, especially on the live chat. So maybe come to Len first, but open to the rest of the board to maybe give us some constructive feedback. It's been submitted by Martin Hunt, M0JZT. Is there a construction element for the intermediate and full exams? There is some electronic theory and maths. It is, after all, a technical hobby, and there is more emphasis on safety. And of course, there used to be a practical element on the intermediate courses. But anyway, I'll come to you first, Len, but if anybody else would like to add to this, it'd be appreciated. Len.
Thanks very much for the question. There is no longer a requirement for a construction element in any of our exams. The reason being from that is the provision of clubs, etc., who provide the technical training, etc., was patchy at best. I used to get requests for exam facilities from various parts of Scotland, not just locally, and the move towards online training, online exams is seen as being a far more inclusive way of becoming a radio amateur. This unfortunately has made a practical test more difficult, regardless how desirable it is, and as such we no longer ask for that requirement. It is purely a exam based online, and there's nothing to stop clubs, etc., with going to the beyond exam syllabus and facilities to allow people to go beyond that is what is required strictly by the exam. So no, it's not a requirement. But no, there's no debar to clubs going that extra mile. They were looking for things that clubs could do better than any other way. I suggest that it's a possibility the clubs might like to have a look at beyond exams and sign up to that and see if we can get some construction going. It's a subject it's close to my heart. It's part of the reason I am a radio amateur. Back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Len. I mean, it is, of course, someone was asking earlier maybe how clubs can attract people now, members, so when people can get their licenses all online, and this might be a great way to attract members. Is there anybody else on the board who'd like to just add to that at all? Okay, no, well, I think we've covered it quite a lot this morning, but thank you again for the question. So next, we've had quite a few questions come in. I'm just trying to find that next question. Okay, this is an advanced question next, and I'm going to ask this to Nathan. It's been submitted by Essexham, MX0SXA. It's about beyond exams. The various RSGB beyond exams initiatives appear to have stalled, with no reports of activity appearing in RADCOM or the 2025 AGM reports. The RSGB website reports that only 3 Brickworks awards have been made since launch in 2022. Online reports indicate that the Beyond Exams team has disbanded. What is the current status of the Beyond Exams initiatives, such as Brickworks, that are intended to inspire newcomers to stay active and engaged with the hobby? Nathan.
Thank you very much again, Essexham, for your question. It's much appreciated. Unfortunately, we do not currently have a Beyond Exams coordinator, and we don't have a Beyond Exams team. However, in the meantime, I have taken the place as the Beyond Exams coordinator to make sure we can still facilitate Brickworks and allow clubs to still register and take part. The website isn't currently up to date with the awards that have been issued for Brickworks, and they normally come to us via email. Not every club, unfortunately, submits the information to us, so keeping that up to date has been a challenge. Going forward, we would like a new coordinator, so if anybody would like to volunteer, they're more than welcome to email me. In the meantime, the board are putting together a working party to look at the future of Beyond Exams and how we can facilitate this to be easier for the person who's taking over in future. If anybody's interested in that role, they're more than welcome to contact me. And also, if there's any ideas to help Beyond Exams progress in the future, please do feel free to contact me. Thank you.
And all the contact details are on the RSGB website as well, aren't they? Thank you very much, Nathan. Now, another question on the live chat. It's regarding exam question challenges. I'm going to ask Len again to take this. It's been submitted by Essex Ham, MX0SXA. RSGB has recently changed their question reporting process to prevent clubs and groups like ours from challenging problem questions. Len?
There is no debar to you challenging any questions you wish, Pete, and I'm sure you will do, either on this, through this system or just emailing the ESE chair. The online exam form is intended to be for those that actually sit the exams, to allow them to do a challenge. We are particularly interested in hearing from those that are affected by any questionable questions on these things. So this was to allow us to do that. However, should you wish to write to the SRG chair about any particular questions, etc., there's nothing stopping you. We have not removed that. We've just provided an additional facility for those sitting exams without removing anything that's happened before.
Okay, so just to be clear, that new question reporting process, I did see that myself on the, I'm the exam secretary for our club, and it did look like it was aimed at candidates taking the exams, but it's still possible for clubs and other people who help to administer exams to contact the group directly to challenge or query any exam question. Just to be clear?
That's correct, and if you don't like the answer that comes from them, you can always contact myself and I'll try and get a resolution for you. Okay,
Len, thank you very much for taking that on. Next, a question in advance. This is about the spectrum, so I'm going to ask John to take this. It's been submitted by Paul Mansfield, G8RXU. Please can the RSGB ask Ofcom to be granted a small slice of spectrum at about 880 megahertz, i.e. double the frequency of 70 SEMS. This could come from the spectrum freed up from the TV switchover to digital from analogue, and or the releasing of spectrum as operators drop 3G. John, can you take that?
Yeah, certainly, David. Thanks for the question, Paul. The spectrum freed up by the digital changeovers already earmarked, has been for years, for the expansion of 4 and 5G networks. 3G spectrum is going to be freed up in the near future. Similarly, going to be refarmed for the next generation, and you're talking about 6G nowadays. So unfortunately, any request for amateur use of this very valuable spectrum is unlikely to be successful. It should be noted, for instance, that the band fees, Ofcom's band fees for the 900 meg band is about £2 million per megahertz. So I don't think we're going to be paying that sort of money, and there's no amateur allocation there internationally, and it's unlikely that we will be able to get a slice of that valuable, very valuable spectrum. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. Well, you've asked Paul. Let's hope anyway that could be available. It does sound like there's a gap in the spectrum there that's waiting to be used. Next, another advanced question. This is about the syllabus. So I'll ask again Len to take this initially. This has been submitted by Steve Hartley, G0FUW. When the licence conditions changed in 2024, we had a period of time for the syllabus to be updated. The published syllabus V1.6 had to be republished as V1.6A to correct errors. It was updated again to V1.6B to remove some duplication and to correct some typos, but the wording of the syllabus still does not match the Ofcom document OFW 611. Could the board please explain why they believe it is acceptable to have an examination syllabus that tests licence conditions that do not exist? Len?
Okay, thanks very much for that one, Steve. What is not generally recognised by many is that we did not receive any advanced notification of the changes that Ofcom were introduced last year. We knew something was going to happen, but not what was going to happen. This meant that the ESRG had comparatively short time not only to revise the syllabus, but the questions derived from those, to make sure that they have they meet the same terms of compliance. As far as wording is concerned, there seems to be a small number of people who get overly agitated by exact wording in the syllabus rather than intended meaning. The one we always smile about is storage capacitors can be described in more than one way. It's described in but the point is, it's clear what there is. As you know from the conversation, I've asked ESRG to have a complete review of the question bank with reducing the numbers. This is well underway. What is not generally realised that we had at one point over 1,000 questions at each level, which did not make it a simple task. And as such, regrettably, some errors did creep in. One of the things, if you've been watching the GB2RS news today, you will see that we are launching a tutors review group. And I know that, Steve, you have agreed to become part of that. And the intention with that is to pre-screen prior to public release any of the documentations, exam questions, with a small panel from the exam tutors community to hopefully catch these errors before they go public and therefore reduce errors to minimum. So I hope that will be a way forward for us in the future. Back to you.
Thank you, Len. Now another advanced question. This is on diversity, so I'm going to ask Peter to take this. It's been submitted by George Salt. What do the RSGB board consider to be the most significant barriers to diversity in participation of amateur radio? As a follow-up, whether they feel the lack of diversity in the board restricts their ability to identify and understand these issues. So Peter.
Thanks, David, and thank you very much, George, for the question. We've got to acknowledge that the demographics of our hobby are what they are. The majority of traditional radio amateurs are gentlemen of a certain age, and there's nothing we can do about that fact. What we can do, though, is attempt to encourage as a diverse a community as possible to take up the hobby, and that's what the RSGB does. We target our outreach activities to as diverse and wide communities as we know about and as we're currently able to. As the question about the board, well, the board's drawn from the membership, people who volunteer from the membership to serve on the board, and the membership is drawn from the people who participate in the hobby. So that's all the same problem. I think you will see benefits of our outreach policy, the diverse aspects of our outreach policy as time goes on. I hope so anyway. I think you might have seen, if you'd watched the President's video earlier on, that there's a great deal of diversity in some of the outreach activities that we're currently engaged in. That's not to say we can't do better, and of course we can, and I shall treat this question as a challenge. And I think the board needs to do better, and I think the society needs to do better. But in order to do better, it needs volunteers with the right mindset to help us do better. So I would answer the second part of your question as an appeal, that if there's anyone out there who wants to give us a hand with this and help us understand what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong and help us do better, please volunteer. Please come and talk to us. You don't have to take a seat on the board to do that, but we'd very much welcome the opportunity to speak to people who can help us. Don't know if any of my board colleagues have anything to say on that subject, but I think that's I think Ben might speak to us on that.
Yeah, Ben.
Yeah, no, just following on from Peter's answer there, which was very, very good. It's key that we have people that contact us so that we know what we need to do. We're 100% committed to support and help anybody, but if we don't know what we need to do to support, it's a little bit it's a little bit harder for us to do the job. So it's key that people do contact us. After my last answer to the question before that I had very similar, I've already had some emails coming through, so this is great. So please keep them coming in, because we do want to support everybody, and we will act on what people say.
Lovely. Okay, thank you to both of you for that, and thanks back to the whole board for taking those questions. Of course, thanks very much to you at home as well for asking all of these questions. That is all with the time we have for now. So now back to Stuart.
Thank you, David. We've answered, and thank you to my colleagues on the board for answering the questions. We've answered all the questions that were submitted in advance, and as many as possible from the live chat in the time available. We thank everyone for taking the time to submit these questions, and we hope we've answered them fully for you. The AGM takes significant time and effort to prepare so that everything runs smoothly. On your behalf, I'd like to thank the staff and the wide range of volunteers who have had input in both front of the camera and behind the camera scenes to support the election and the AGM preparations. All that remains for me is to thank everyone for joining us today. Now, I would also like to ask you to stay with us now for the presentation of the RSGB in the year ahead. This will be led by Ben Lloyd, I believe now, due to Mark's technical issues. Sorry, I beg your pardon. This will be led by Ben Lloyd due to technical issues, GW4 BML. The Spectrum Forum Chair and Life Vice President Murray Niman, G6 JYB, and the new RSGB President Bob Beebe, GU4 YOX will take part. The presentation will cover the Society's outreach projects for youth, development and challenges in defending the spectrum, and an outline of what Bob hopes to achieve in his first year as President. It will finish with the RSGB's high-level strategic goals for the year 2025-26. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Well, as Stuart's just said, in a couple of minutes we'll be watching a presentation about the Society's strategy for the coming year. But just before that, we'd like to play you a short video. It's been great to see some of the Society's and the President's highlights from 2024 in the President's Review video. But in the video you're about to see, we focus on what individual radio amateurs have been doing. At the convention last year, the RSGB comms manager went to chat to people in the bar on Friday evening, and she asked them what they'd done for the first time in amateur radio during 2024. And here's what they said.
Well, I'm very excited because I'm here at the convention for the very first time. I only recently qualified back in July this year, got my foundation license, and I just thought this is a really good opportunity to learn a lot of stuff in a short space of time, and also just to meet some other amateurs. So here I am.
Well, I've moved from Scotland to Norfolk, and I've spent the last 2 years building or rebuilding my shack, setting up a new antenna system, building a tower, and getting myself QRV or active on every band from 160 soon to 3 centimeters, but currently all the HF bands and HF.
So this year I've tried satellites for the first time, and I'd like to progress that further if I can. I've done a couple of downloads from a couple of satellites, and I'd like to see what other satellites I can download information from, but also work a lot of satellite contacts, which I haven't done much in the years I've been an amateur, so hopefully I can be able to do that.
All of it is new. I'm very newly qualified. I got my foundation in July and my intermediate in August, and my partner got their foundation in August, and the hobby's whatever you want it to be. I'm particularly interested in the higher frequencies, into the gigahertz, and my partner's into digital radio, so we can go anywhere with a hobby, and that's what's so great about it.
Well, I've recently changed my receiver. I've been using a wonderful Kenwood TS890 receiver, but I decided I wanted to try out this SDR, software-defined radio. So I got myself a Flex, not one of the newest ones, it's a 6400, but I think it's great, and that's allowed me to use some new software. It's SDC, software-defined connectors, written by a Ukrainian Yuri, and I think it's great. It lets me really get into contesting because that's what I'm interested in most.
I did a DF hunt with our local club and I won.
Welcome back. We now have a live presentation which looks ahead over the next year at the Radio Society of Great Britain. If you're watching this on Saturday, April 12th, then this is live and you can ask questions or make comments about the presentation at any time on YouTube chat, and the team will address as many as they can at the end of the talk. Please include your first name and call sign if you have one within every message. So now over to the RSGB and Bob Beebe, GU4YOX.
If you're watching live or you're watching this in a recorded session, we have had some technical issues this morning, but as good strategic objectives go, we carry on and we persevere. So what I'd like to do today is first of all say hello. It's the first time I woke up this morning not being president, and now I am president, and it's great to see everybody, and I hope you've enjoyed the AGM earlier and the Q&A session as well, which was particularly lively and I thought was very productive. So without further ado, let's talk about strategy, and I'd like to hand over to Ben, GW4BML. Ben, off you go.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob, Mr. President. In this presentation, we're going to just cover some of the work that we've been doing over the last year and what we're going to be doing in the future. Growth was one of our main strategic priorities, and under growth comes the practical outreach team, which I run myself, skill and career development, mature audience segment, getting started, positive support and engagement, reimagination, young people audience segment, and of course the membership. Next slide, please. So to give a small taste of our strategic related activities, myself, Ben Lloyd, GW4BML, we'll just run through a few. I am one of the RSGB board directors. My roles are I look after youth, ARIS, ARDF, and now the outreach team. Next slide, please. So British Science Week. We set a goal to create 4 new activities for British Science Week 2025. When we created the practical outreach team, we sat down. We have 10 members now. We didn't have that many at the time, but we decided, how are we going to progress? What are we going to do to get what we want out of the hobby, to try and attract, make amateur radio attractive to get new members? So we said we'll set ourselves some goals. We were only a small team, so we needed to start off small. So setting a goal at a time was our mission. So at the first goal, we concentrated on British Science Week, aimed to submit the best 2 activities for a chance to get into the official British Science Week activity pack. So we had success and created 4 new British Science Week activities to share through the RSGB comms channels, which adds to the activities which were done in the past. 2 of these activities were submitted to the British Science Week Association for a chance to get in the pack. 1 was selected and features in the official British Science Week Community Activity Pack, which has been promoted nationwide, so across the UK. So not only last year is what we worked on to get into the pack, but this now has created a relationship with the British Science Week Foundation going into 2026 that we'll be able to work with them, hopefully, going forward. Now, this because it's been promoted across the UK, this will hopefully attract more people in the general public to have a look to see what amateur radio is, what is involved in it. Next slide, please. So UK ARIS contacts. We set a goal to have 5 youth organisations apply to host a contact. This is currently in progress. I'm not 100% sure, is everybody aware of how you apply to have a contact for ARIS, but youth organisations go onto the ARIS website, and the ARIS website has an application form. Now you have to fill in this application form. It's quite thorough, but at the end of the day, to host an ARIS contact is a very big event. It gives really good publicity for the youth organisation, whether it be in a school, a Scouts, a group, a university. It gives really good publicity. So you have to fill this application form in, and we might, as the UK, we might not be successful to get the contact, but we might. And if we haven't got any applications, we obviously won't be. So this last year we focused on getting 4. we managed to get more than 4, and we were very successful to get a youth Scouts organisation having a contact in Q1 2025. The next application window has opened, and it will be closing very, very shortly. So that's why I can't say what the progress is on that. But we've basically sent this information out across the UK again to try to get youth organisations to submit an application form to be in with a chance of hosting an ARIS contact. Next slide, please. So a DMR project. So we've all sat down and we've been wondering, how can we get amateur radio into schools? This was the focus. So the RSGB youth team is working with schools to enable them to apply for a free DMR radio kit, allowing pupils to experience what amateur radio is and does. The team is also working with the Radio Communications Foundation, also known as the RCF, to fund one free foundation license exam for the school teacher with each DMR radio kit provided. This offer will be available across the UK for any interested schools. So we sat down, we thought, amateur radio, what could we do that's easy to get people on air? Well, DMR is quite an easy setup, and you can do DMR if you've got an internet connection and a Pi all connected up. So we've worked with a company. They have created us this package. So the school is to contact the outreach team and the youth team, and we then will send a DMR radio kit on loan to the school. They'll give us the information, so it's all programmed in to the radio and the Pi. So it's a matter of plug and play when they receive it at the other end. Now, this also is going to go out with a free exam funded by the RCF for the school teacher. Now, in my opinion, we offer free exams to the youth at the moment, but the youth need someone to kind of interact with them about amateur radio and tell them about it. So if you have a school teacher that has an exam, the school teacher will teach the hobby. They'll be more inclined to talk to their students, talk to their pupils about amateur radio. So hence why we said a free exam for each kit that we send out for a school teacher if they're interested. And the aim is to introduce the amateur radio hobby, giving young people the opportunity to experience being on air. And we hope this will attract more young people to apply for their foundation license exam. So please, if you know any organisations, this will be, the comms will be going out very, very soon for this offer. So if you know any youth organisations, please pass it on because it would be great to see more and more people become licensed. Next, please. So YOTA Camp. This year, we have YOTA Camp, which is in August 2025 in Paris. We applied for the maximum 3 places at the annual YOTA Summer Camp to be held in Paris. Our application was successful, and we hope to send 3 participants. This event will be promoted very soon through the normal RSGB comms channels and Radcom. I do believe it went out yesterday, actually. It's on the RSGB website now. Please keep an eye out. And if you'd like to attend, or you know of any licensed youth colleagues who may be interested, the YOTA Summer Camp is a great amateur radio experience where you get to meet many young amateur radios from across the world. To find out, please visit the rsgb.org/youth-camp. We had a colleague go last year, Rhys Williams. Rhys is now part of my youth team. He's the youth champion for universities. Rhys did a blog, a report on his week there, which you can find on the RSGB website, and he thoroughly enjoyed it, and he really pushed to say if anybody can sign up to go for it, it's a brilliant experience. You meet so many interesting people and learn so much more stuff about amateur radio. So please do pass it on to all youth organisations, and the youth organisations onto the licensed amateurs to be within a chance of going this year. Next, please. National Coding Week. So we introduced a couple of new activities for National Coding Week 2024, one of which was the LoRa tracking board, which turned out to be very successful. LoRa seems to be a very interesting theme at the moment. A lot of people are doing it. I'm quite fond of doing a few SOTA activations, if anybody knows me well. So I've made a few boards myself, and I've used LoRa as a tracker when I walk the hills. It works very well, and I enjoy doing it as well. This year, the RSGB Outreach team is looking to arrange an event offering the opportunity to try your LoRa board out for build. For a chance to take part in our planned event, stay tuned and continue to watch the comms channels for more information. So we put on the build-a-thon last year for the LoRa board. We did an activity pack and it was on the website. Now this year we're working to hopefully have an event which you kind of attract people in to doing the hobby, and then this event is going to retain. It's going to be something that you'll need your LoRa board to be involved in. So creating new build activities is exciting to do, and organising events like these attracts youngsters to the hobby. Arranging events where you have a chance to test your own product to see if you're successful helps to retain participants. It also gives them some incentive to apply for their foundation exam and become licensed. So next slide, please. So YOTA month 2025. When I first become the board liaison for youth, I set a long-term goal of filling the YOTA month in December and have every day filled with youngsters calling CQ SOTA on the air. This is still my mission, and I would like to continue in my position until I can get December calling CQ YOTA on every day of the month. We need your help for this. The outreach team and youth team would love to see YOTA month held in December completely full, with youngsters calling out CQ YOTA every day. When the comms are announced, we need all RSGB members to help make this happen by promoting the event with local clubs, youth organisations, etc., and helping them to get involved. Details will be coming soon on YOTA month 2026. So please do help us out, promote it everywhere. We really dedicated to get the month of December full of CQ YOTA. So next slide, please. So the RSGB has been working with various youth groups from across the UK, including JOTI with the Scouts, which has resulted in some great publicity over the past 12 months. We've been noticed and now invited to these events, which are new for the Society. Mayhem 2025, which we're taking part in, and West Sussex Jamboree in August 2025. We plan to attend these events and deliver a couple of practical activities for large numbers of young people. We hope they enjoy the activities, resulting in us being able to return the following year and potentially being invited to other new youth organisation events. It's really nice to see my email box filling up day to day with people coming back with all success stories of what we've done and future planning. What else can we do, Ben? You know, what else can the team do? And we've got such a proactive outreach team and youth team at the moment. It's fantastic. We come out with all sorts of ideas, which gets us into these events. And the more and more ideas we get and the more and more events we get invited to, the more and more amateur radio gets out there to the younger generation. Not just the general younger generation. Like in schools, universities, you've got a little bit more experienced colleagues there, which could also take the hobby up from seeing what the youth are doing and enjoying it. There's all different aspects of the hobby. Next slide, please. STEM Ambassador Programme. This was something the RSGB Outreach team members have all been challenged to become STEM ambassadors. Now, we were going to decide to do this year. That was on the agenda for Q1 2025. But it's a good things out of it was we were too busy. We just sat down in our first agenda in January and we just could not find a space to add STEM Ambassador Programme into it because we were that busy. We got so many things going on, brilliant things. So what we decided to do was, before we can kind of 100% concentrate on the STEM Ambassadors scheme, we all need to become STEM ambassadors so we understand what's going on. So set a challenge for 2025 for all the outreach team members to become STEM ambassadors. So some of them already are, but by the end of 2025, we all will. And then going into 2026, we're going to put a lot of focus on STEM to try our best to get amateur radio across the UK throughout STEM. So as I said, some of the team members are already STEM ambassadors, but we are looking to push this scheme going forward into 2026. We believe it will be much easier to work together, knowing how the scheme works, and we will be encouraging other radio amateurs to become STEM ambassadors and to support our outreach activities, whether you're in clubs or youth organisations, RSGB clubs across the UK. This is something we will be trying to do. Okay, next slide, please. Well, there we go. Thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them at the end. That's what we're here for. And I will pass it back to the Mr. President, Bob.
Thank you, Ben. Very informative, and I think that just reflects on everything that we spoke about in the Q&A session of the AGM, that, you know, we're looking at, we're reaching out, and young people are a principal key to our success and future of the RSGB. Now, with spectrum and licensing, which is very important, I'd like to now hand over to Murray, G6JYB, who will discuss some of the aspects of the spectrum challenges that we face as our hobby. Murray.
Right, thank you very much. And as it says, spectrum matters, and it's a pun because spectrum does matter, of course. So in this set of slides, and there aren't that many of them, we're going to actually cover spectrum and licensing, not just spectrum, but we'll start at the beginning with the briefest of overview. Amateur radio is the only, it's not a hobby, it's a service that's defined and regulated by international treaty. We briefly saw in John's presentation earlier the radio regulation. So they're at the very top, the ITU radio regs, which are a treaty, gives us our frequency bands. Then that flows down to the next level where individual regulators such as Ofcom turn that into how we get licenses to access that spectrum. And obviously that then flows down to how do we use it? And that's where member societies like the RSGB, very active members of IAU, and we come up with ideally fairly harmonised band plans, but they do vary due to national variations. And that lets you do, you know, whether it's simple operating or being innovative or training the next generation. The amateur radio is, you know, technical investigations, operating emergency comms. There's a whole raft of facilities that flow from that spectrum and being able to retain access to it. Now, it happens that this year, in fact, next week, the President's Night will be at an event that marks the 100th anniversary of the Amateur Radio Union. And that was formed at a time where the prospect of losing all our, what are now the HF bands, was a real possibility. Next slide. So we're going to be a bit more forward-looking. Many people know about what we're facing with, but not many people realise that we have to keep constant watch on what's on the horizon so that down track it doesn't impinge on our privileges or access the spectrum, because we don't have exclusive access. Now, we're sharing the radio spectrum with lots of other people, and quite frankly, we live in an increasingly wireless society, to give the broad view of that. So on the left, as cars have got smarter or want to drive themselves, they are being absolutely kitted out with, yeah, initially it was just sat-nav and GPS and a mobile phone modem. Now they have sort of radars and data links. So intelligent transport has an ambition to stop car crashes because your brakes will tell the brakes in the car behind that they're going on at exactly the same time, for example. But a lot of these things overlap amateur allocations. Likewise, we're seeing the treaty being extended to, you know, lunar operations for moon bases and all sorts of stuff there. And we need to safeguard that concerns about high power EME isn't going to be considered a threat by sort of those folk who are either on the moon or putting orbiting telephone systems and navigation systems around it. And recently we're seeing science and climate change now being quite a serious issue for amateur radio. This is quite a nice example of one that's being launched that will, in the 77s band, that is that antenna, it deploys a huge mesh parabolic dish and sends radar pulses down, and we're seeing these appear in a number of bands. So whether it's space weather or climate change, part of the environment we now deal with, it's not just the mobile sort of bands. So next slide. And that's better summarised here. So our classical problems have been in sort of the UHF area in particular. So most people have 5G. The 6G spectrum's being sorted out at the moment. There's only so many megahertz left. So there's no such thing as unused spectrum. Oh, someone's got an eye on it everywhere. So I mentioned quite serious demands from science and government in HF and low VHF, and in fact navigation systems all the way down to MF and VLF. Also down in those frequencies, we're seeing the emergence of very high power wireless transmission. Some of that's inductive in for sort of cars and drones, but there's an increased recurrence of interest on beamed wireless power in microwave bands as well, which I'm sure people wouldn't want to walk through a gigawatt WPT beam, for example. But that again overlaps amateur frequencies. Or if the fundamental doesn't, the harmonics might, which is our concern with the inductive stuff. Satellites are going to, if you think they've been pretty good so far, there's a revolution about to happen where all of a sudden your handset can increasingly get services directly to and from it from satellites in orbit without needing any base stations. So that brings the era of 100% coverage and arguments that we're good for emergency comms because the infrastructure's sort of knocked out. That changes the environment we will be working in. And likewise, if we see experiments get further deregulated, you'll see finance people wanting more high-speed trading communication links in HF which is how the New York Stock Exchange gets across the pond to this side of the world, and in X-band or 10 gigs or near it from London across Europe, so where every nanosecond is worth millions. It may be mad, but people are prepared to pay for that spectrum, and we get squeezed. And you've just seen the earlier mention of vehicles, security scanners. So some of them are low frequency, some of them go into incredible frequencies. Your default car cruise control or short range radars at 76 gigs, which is an amateur band. The next band up, to make the antenna smaller, they go into wing mirrors at 122 gigs, and that's where we've just awarded, not for the first time, some incredibly brilliant amateurs for innovating with the hardware that's available at those frequencies. So whilst you may consider some of these as concerns or threats, technology is becoming available. We live in one of the best eras for both test equipment and technology to be adapted by amateur radio. So by spotting this early, we can either forecast where we might want to go or get in early to protect our own access to it. Next slide. Right, so we obviously need to engage. The single biggest item every usually 4 years is the ITU World Radio Conference, which sets the allocations or changes to allocations. At the last one, we ended up with a real challenge, which is now 23 SEMs, and we've still got unfinished business there. But on the topics that are current in the new stuff, space weather, which the sensors want to impose restrictions and protection at the edges of our 10-meter band. Originally, they wanted the 10-meter band itself, but across HF and low VHF, that crops up. Mentioned direct to handset, 6G. In fact, this current World Radio Conference cycle, which will have its conclusion in 2027, has a record number of satellite issues, not helped by people launching. Now, it's not like one or two satellites, and it's not just SpaceX. People do consider satellite constellations of dozens, hundreds, or thousands of satellites, and all those need RF. That's wireless. So we're and IRU volunteers are engaged in the preparations, in fact, in 2 CPT groups this year. And that is not only looking at WRC 27, which is coming up in a couple of years' time, but that will also set the agenda or confirm the agenda for the 2031 conference, where there's amateur bands, and including wireless power in there, and preliminary stuff out to 2034. So strategy here and crystal ball gazing has to be on 5 to 10 year timescales. It's but being engaged and having good contacts and volunteers that may have very good industry or regulatory links is something we're always very keen on. And it's not just me. We've had Barry Lewis kept incredibly busy with 23 SEMS. That issue is very topical. CPT concluded its consultation yesterday lunchtime was the deadline, and we'll see. We pretty well know what the final decision is there, and that'll still take months to approve and roll out later in the year. But by engaging in that process, we have preserved, the very high value narrowband area, and next. In the coming week or so, we'll be engaged with IIRU on reband planning that to be compatible with that outcome. Next slide. So coming slightly closer to home, I mentioned spectrum and licensing. Whilst some, the later phases we'll mention in another slide, we have been dealing with sort of unfinished business from the initial part of the license review. So this time last year, we were only a few months into the new license, a hell of a lot had changed, but there were things that hadn't been tidied up. So, for example, ETCC and ourselves have worked with Ofcom to update the areas where NOVs are still required. Not as many are required nowadays, but there are some. So everything in 23 SEMS falls under the requirements to have an NOV. If you look at the coordination notice that accompanies your license, along with the higher ERP systems that particularly RayNet use. We've had consultations and replies regarding additional commercial use down in 2.3 gigs. We've recently replied to a very interesting what's called license exemption review by Ofcom, which covers reciprocal licensing for not the amateurs within the CPT agreement, but some other nations can have had for a long time bilateral treaties with the UK for visiting amateurs. That may be very modest numbers, actually applying under those regimes, but it's extra paperwork for Ofcom spectrum licensing. So by going the route they do, which is definitely supported by us, visitors from those countries will effectively find it much, much easier to visitors and operate temporarily for 3 months under UK conditions. The review had other things in, so we're conscious that 5.7 gigs, which is again a key microwave narrowband area, will have other usages in there. And Ofcom are currently consulting on UK satellites, and that will include items that affect either CubeSats or potentially, which is a concern, things that are not amateur radio but claim to want to operate on amateur radio frequencies under I won't say a loophole, but a facility under the ITU rules. And that's something that, on the one hand, we want to facilitate for legitimate university projects, but we need to be careful it's not used as a backdoor by commercial thing. Next slide. So finally, we get to the licensing rather than the spectrum bit. As we know, we we're going to end up with phases 2 and then phase 3 of the license review. Originally done and dusted by this point. Obviously, that hasn't happened. Phase 2, just to remind you, had 2 key elements, really, which was liberalising the special event station rules and also moving or potentially moving the 2 series intermediate call signs into the M8s and M9s. That cropped up earlier. It's for reasons we'll just mention in a moment. That will people will have to be patient there. Phase 3 had slightly more controversy in it regarding revoking lower call signs or the ability to change call signs and a few other sort of final tidy-ups. The current position, and there's been more than one update on this, is that it's dependent on the evolution of their licensing platform. And like any great IT project, these things take longer than you think, they cost more than you think, and needless to say, we're at the bottom of the priority list. So the Ofcom website gives a month in autumn for this to happen. I would suggest we shouldn't get our hopes up because there's still considerations by Ofcom as to exactly how they do this and whether it's that platform or something else. And whether it's 2 phases or rolled into a single phase is also subject to confirmation. So we'll hope to have, by the time we get to the autumn and perhaps the convention, hopefully we'll be a bit wiser. In the meantime, of course, as also mentioned earlier in the day, the existing rules around where we had managed to be very successful around removing frequency clearance requirements in 77s, a secondary band, the primary user was remarkably helpful in that particular case. That's led to a huge surge in repeaters, gateways, and other things in the 77s band. So in a few weeks ago, our UHF band plan had a major adjustment. Some of it may not be as obvious to some folk at the moment, but more about that will eventually roll out online as well. So it's a sign of success, and hopefully some of it will be used for innovative and newer systems, so sort of not just more of the same, to coin a phrase. And on that point, if we go to the next slide, I will hand it back to Bob. But we'll welcome any questions in due course. Thanks.
Thank you, Murray. And wow, it just shows how much is going on behind the scenes. Absolutely incredible work, and we all thank you for that. Okay, so it's me, right? Well, let's go to the first slide then, please, David. I'll just talk a little bit about the future and the past as well. First of all, I'm humbled and honoured to be your president. I have deep pride in serving the board, HQ officers who work there, and of course you, our valued members. I also want to thank John McCulloch, GI4BWM, for 2 sterling years of hard work, and also your wise counsel, John, and I wish you all the best for the future. I'm sure we'll see you again soon. But I'm eagerly looking forward to meeting as many of you as possible at various national and international events that I hope to attend. And I think it's very important that we do raise our awareness both nationally in Great Britain and also further afield. Many societies around the world and individuals look on us as a learned society with much technical expertise, and I'm really proud to be leading the society in that vein. But just reflecting on our history, let's just go back 100 years to April 1925, when the esteemed scientist Sir Oliver Lodge was elected president of the society in this month. Just a year earlier, long distance communication on shortwaves were virtually unheard of, and within a year trans-equatorial contacts were becoming commonplace. That same year, the RSGB President met with Hiram Percy Maxim from the American Radio Relay League, the ARRL, and with the RAF, the French, They met in London with Sir Oliver Lodge and said, you know, we need a union of every national radio society in the world. And thus the International Amateur Radio Union was formed, the IARU. And we proudly celebrate the centenary later this month. And I will be representing the society along with Murray at the meetings that we've got planned in Paris. And when I finally get back to Guernsey, where I live, which isn't in the UK, but it is in Great Britain, I look forward on the 28th of April to working as many members as possible. I think I'm on 40 and 80 meters, phone, CW, you name it. And it will be an opportunity I'll be very pleased to make contact with you as your president. But there we go. As we mark this 100-year milestone, it's crucial to consider where we stand today as a hobby and as a national society. And if we aspire to be here in the next 100 years, we must ensure that our foundations remain strong and ready for the future. Just as radio technology has evolved over the past century, it will undoubtedly continue to transform in the next 100 years. Just what Murray said there is unbelievable progress. Yet the spirit of amateur radio will persist, and our tradition of national and international friendship will continue to flourish. Raising the profile of the society both domestically and internationally is a key priority for both myself and the society. And as experts in our field, we have much to offer both our current members and prospective members. Since my nomination as president and today, I've just retired from a 48-year career in the electricity power industry, and this new chapter allows me to dedicate my time and energy to amateur radio and our community going forward. I'm very eager to support our dedicated volunteers, HQ team, and more importantly, you, our members, in fostering and expanding our shared passion for communication. This is the amateur spirit that unites us all. So, I wish to outline some clear objectives that have been agreed by the board and will guide all of our volunteers, of which number over 400, to ensure that we are fit for purpose for years to come. Over the past 18 months, we have shared our strategic updates through Radcom on our website and through other communication channels. I hope that you found them insightful. And now I'd like to go to slide 2, please, David. These are the 4 pillars: the growth of amateur radio, membership of the RSGB, spectrum and licensing, and ensuring the continued financial stability of the society. These 4 pillars form the foundation of our strategic ecosystem. I think that's what I'd like to call it, because all of them are interconnected and it forms who we are today and what our aspirations are for the future. Next slide, please. And so what we've done, and Mark Jones has been key in this, in setting the overall strategic direction for the society, what we want to do is to put some key objectives, some milestones, some targets effectively that we can all follow, from the board down through all the volunteer leadership teams, the regional teams, every member. Even when you go to the club as just a member on your own, you know that this is what we're trying to deliver, and you can play your part in delivering these objectives. And so what we want to do is to increase the number of amateur radio exams taken by 5% over the next 12 months. In the calendar year 2024, we had 2,300 exams. Last year, we saw over 3,000. It's a big target, it's a big objective. But if we don't set these objectives, then we haven't got anything to aspire and aim to. So we'd love to see that if that's possible. Next slide, please. Excuse me. We'd also like to increase the number of members of our society by 2% over the next 12 months. With the aging demographic, we sadly lose about 600 members a year who become silent key. But through the initiatives that we're going to be putting in place, all of us have a responsibility to encourage every radio amateur to become a member of the National Society. When I go to Friedrichshafen and I see the percentages of German amateurs who are a member of DARC, it's phenomenal. And we should aim to aspire to get as many amateurs as possible to be members of our society. So we look forward to advising what our policies are on that and how we're going to do it. Next slide, please. And I don't want to go over everything that Murray's just said, but safeguarding our spectrum is absolutely key. And we thank Murray and his team of volunteers for working with that. I also want to meet with government and also meet with Ofcom and other interested institutions like the IET, raising our profile yet further as president of the society. Next slide, please. We also want to carry out a strategic fiscal or financial review of the society with a view to breaking even over the next 24 months. And we also, at the moment, we have quite a simple income stream model of advertising in Radcom, membership, and other sources of exams and other sources. But we want to review potential new income streams for the societies, whether it's training, whether it's clothing, whatever it is, insurances, whatever we want to do, though, we want to not only provide an income stream, but also provide additional value to being a member of the RSGB. I want to stand back and say the reasons I'm a member is part of the National Society, being part of the National Society, and a whole host of other reasons. And we're going to be working on that over the next 12 months. And furthermore, on the website, and it was mentioned in the Q&A session that it was somewhat a bit complicated to be clear about how to become a radio amateur and what the membership categories are. What we want to do over the next year is we're going to review all the membership categories so that we can be fair and inclusive to an even broader potential future membership. And we want to streamline that. So on the website, whether it's a handout at a radio club, you will have a simple sheet with all the categories possible and all the different access points of where you can become a member. We really want it to be straightforward, plain speaking, and basically modernizing what we do. Next slide, please. I'm going to hopefully do a lot of club visits over the next 2 years. We've got the first 12 months ahead. I'm sitting in a little hotel room here. It feels like Narnia, but I'm looking forward to going to Norbreck Castle tomorrow for the Northern Radio Rally, first of the year, and I'm looking forward to meeting many radio amateurs. So come and say hello if you see me. If I don't know you, then please introduce yourself and say hi. Looking forward to lots of third-party engagement and interacting with the membership. And most importantly, getting on the air. I'm an avid DX petitioner. I love working DX. I'm a contester as well. I love phone. I love CW. I love getting on the radio. So I really look forward to that for the future. Next slide, please. And what am I looking for? I'd love to see a forward-looking society that is inclusive and engaging. I've just spent the last 12 months as being chairman of your nominations committee, where we identify and look for individuals who can not only join the board supporting you and all the volunteer teams, but also being making sure we've got the right demographic. And you saw Ben earlier, who was one of our younger people, and Nathan as well, but we'd love to see more women joining the board as well. Absolutely, diversity and inclusion is absolutely key. For example, at the headquarters, 80% of the staff are female, and they outnumber the men so by quite a lot. So why not put yourself forward? If you're watching this and you're a radio amateur, come and speak to me or email me. My address is on the website, and I'd love to speak to you for the future. And finally, we want to celebrate our amateur radio spirit. I want everybody to be, forward thinking, be engaging, enjoy what you do, get on the air. I travel all over the world. I have done in my amateur radio life. It's been a foundation of my family life, working life, and I've got friends all over the world. And that is truly the amateur radio spirit. And with that, I think the last slide, David. There you go. I just want to say a big thanks to everybody who made today possible. We've had a lot of technical challenges. It's a bit like the swan with the all looking serene at the top, but underneath there's a lot going on behind to make everything work. So thank you to everybody. Thank you for joining us today. If you're watching this live or you're watching it in a future time, then thank you for joining us. I look forward to seeing all of you on the air, in person. I look forward to the next 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob, and to all of you for that strategy overview of what you're going to be doing for the next 12 months and onwards. So if you've got any questions or comments about this presentation which you'd like to share and haven't already done so, please do it now on YouTube chat. and don't forget to include your first name and call sign if you have one. We've had a couple of points which I'll bring to you now. Firstly, from Carl Littlejohns, G0TQM, Carl says he likes the sound of a LoRa event. Of course, the more trackers, the better, so hopefully it will be UK-wide. Question mark. So Ben, will it be UK-wide?
Okay, hello Carl, and thank you very much for your question. The answer to it is a definite yes. We've got an event that we're looking to put on, so you can test your LoRa trackers that you've built. Also, a little bit of a bit of competition involved in it as well. So yeah, if you stay tuned, we'll be sending some comms out soon on this event. But yes, it will 100% be UK based.
Okay, thanks. Ben, can you just elaborate a little bit more about LoRa? I've read about it in technical magazines. I haven't touched it or anything. I'm an old-fashioned electronic engineer as well, so I should be really. It's sort of low-power radio, isn't it? For the benefit of people watching who are not sure what it is, can you just give us a quick overview?
Yeah, well, it works on the 400 megahertz band. It's basically you have an iGate which you install. I have one personally myself. Higher the better. Which receives a packet, and the packet's uploaded onto the internet, and it pinpoints where you are on the map. And then your LoRa tracker board that you make, you can buy them in kit form. AliExpress do quite a lot of them. We've got there's an activity sheet on the RSGB website, so if anybody wants to find everything you need to make a tracker, it's all available on the website. And feel free to contact me. Again, my details are there, and I can send you the link. And then you make your tracker board. You enter your call sign into it, and then this tracker board pings your location. You have a little antenna that comes off it. It pings a packet out. The iGates, which are on the hill, high ground or low ground, receive the packet, and then they upload it onto the internet. And I've used it quite a lot for SOTA. And last year there was a few colleagues which started LoRa off to try and get it a little bit big in the SOTA community, and the vast majority took it up. They've installed iGates, and we've got our own little network across Wales and England and up in Scotland now that we use for SOTA. So it's nice to see that word of mouth and amateur radio, again, as Bob said, it's like a community. Everyone got together and they decided to put their own iGates up. So we cover quite a lot of the UK now with LoRa trackers.
So the iGate, I imagine that stands for Internet Gateway maybe, and that links them all to each other so that you can cover a long range, even though each one is quite low power?
It updates, so the iGates, you've got them all scattered all over the place. They can link. You get the digipeaters, which link with others, which a digipeater will send the packet to an iGate, which is internet-based, and it uploads the packet onto the internet. But the iGates upload the packet, your location, so you can plot the map where you are.
Okay. I mean, today we've heard lots about projects and things, and we also heard about some people missing the hardware, the construction elements of exams, in the intermediate, which used to be very much part of it. So this sounds like this could be a really good project to get involved with.
Sorry to interrupt you on that one, but what we find is with regards to youth, they really like getting involved. I'm not too sure has anybody seen a documentary. A good friend of mine, everyone knows him, Dave Wilson, sent a video across to me one day, YouTube, of model railways, and it was very, very interesting to watch because it basically showed you can't really tell youngsters how to do something. You've got to put the youngster in and just let them play. Mm-hmm. And this is the type of thing with build-a-thons, activities, and that you just. If they solder the board wrong, they solder the board wrong. But they've got to learn, and this is the entertaining part about amateur radio, about the hobby there, and it creates interest. So yeah, we are looking to do more build-a-thons and activities going forward, David.
Yeah, good. Okay, and I can tell you at home as well. You might have seen it on the YouTube chat, but if not, you can find that worksheet that Ben's talking about at rsgb.org/coding. So it does sound a really interesting project, that. We haven't had many other questions really. I did have a comment from Station Master, but I don't know your name, I'm sorry, and I don't know, you said not just visitors, remote operators, not sure what that respects to. So if you'd like to quickly come back to me and say exactly what you meant and what part of the presentation that was about, then I'd be happy to read that to you. Carl, by the way, who asked the last question, has mentioned something which maybe we should all think about. I know in Murray's presentation he was talking about satellites and how mobile phones will soon be able to talk directly to satellites. But Carl points out that recent geopolitics indicates that access to satellite-based comms cannot be taken for granted. Obviously, you've got to stay clear of the politics side of it, but it is something worth remembering that our hobby is still, we're independent. We don't need other people's satellites and things to work, do we? Do you want to think, any thoughts on that, Murray?
Well, that's true. And because people like to be independent, everyone wants their own satellite constellation. So the UK has, strong interest in OneWeb. If people are worried about a well-known one, there's Amazon Kuiper, Viasat, Iridium. So the satellite issue means that everyone, European Union are planning one as well. So space is going to get very crowded, and that means the amount of frequencies needed either to control those, to talk to those, or for the satellites to talk to each other is going to add to spectrum pressures. Certainly in UHF and upwards. So, but yes, it's people are always nervous about relying on infrastructure, but everyone's into it. It's going to be just another facet of modern life.
But it is something that organisations like RayNet, for example, rely on the fact that we are independent of the infrastructure that runs, say, the mobile phone network, and means that we can talk to each other. So there's still a place for that, isn't there? Murray, I mean, with all your work, your deep work on Spectrum and all the committees that you've been on and the ITU and things, I mean, do you see pressures on other parts of our bands, like the HF bands, for example? Do you see them under threat in the same way that they were talked about a few years ago?
Yeah, so that was actually in the talk. So as I say, the science and space weather, financial trading, away from just HF noise levels, which most people are familiar with, there's plenty of other things. There's going to be a wider use of HF radars as well, which of course are not very friendly towards us. So there's a whole series of stuff down in LF and MF, down below a few megahertz.
So we mustn't
be VHF, where people think, oh, it's empty and noisy and awful. We're seeing commercial. Stuart and I sat in an Ofcom annual meeting a few months ago, and commercial people behind us were complaining about they want it and why is it taking them so slow. So there is demand everywhere. We just have to stay well informed and well connected.
So we mustn't be complacent, I think, in the message, and use those bands, bands that are often not used as well.
Use or lose.
UHF in particular.
And in the high bands, we're not going to have vast volumes of users, but make sure you tell your story or put on YouTube or whatever that we're still innovating in. Just as 100 years ago, amateurs got HF because the commercial people thought it was a waste of time, okay? And the radio regulations in those days were only about 10 pages long. Those times have changed. People think, the broadcasters are evacuating from medium wave. There's already new schemes that may return there. So, yes, no complacency.
No, all right, well.
And tell a good story.
Absolutely. That's a good message probably to leave us on. I would just mention one other thing. I think it was you, Murray, that mentioned HAMSci, space weather, and of course we have got on our next Tonight at 8 webinar on the RSGB on the 12th of May, we have got a webinar on HAMSci, space weather, we can do together, and Nathaniel Frisell, W2NAF, will be bringing us that. More details on rsgb.org/webinars. But thank you to all of you here today. Thank you to Ben, Murray and Bob for this presentation. Thanks to everybody at home as well as stuck with us for the last pretty much 3 hours now. Since the AGM started. Thank you all very much indeed. We hope you've enjoyed this RSGB presentation. If you subscribe to the RSGB's YouTube channel, you'll be notified of other presentations, webinars and videos from the Society on a wide range of amateur radio topics. Thanks again for joining us today. And until next time, this is David, G7ERP, signing off and clear. Bye-bye.
you.